at the end of time.
O'clock.
Hey, what's going on? Here we are again.
Yep.
And I say every time
I'm
I
off the camera.
Yeah, get the hell in the
Because you're hogging.
What?
Because you're hogging it.
We're like gonna push each other out of the fucking
You're like,
frame.
get off, and then push
Get
me
off
into
it.
the other video.
And they'll be like, "Who's this bitch?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like in a review. You're like in a movie review.
Yeah, or some shit
Yeah,
like
right,
that.
like,
So with my luck, I'd end up in like some fucking stupid ass motherfucking thing
Yeah.
on the side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Zach says, Tom, I was half asleep when you sent me all his messages last night, and I thought I was having a dream.
No.
The messenger typing sound effect. Oh, what'd you do? Did you send him dick pics?
No, he wishes. No, I was telling him about. We haven't said anything about it, but I told him it was.
Oh, the new project.
The new project. Yeah. Yeah.
You're telling him about that. Was that what you were doing after you got home? Because he went out to bike night last night.
No, it was at bike night, and he was asking
Oh,
about it.
okay.
You know, I had my device with it.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know, because I saw, because you sent me some messages, too, but, yeah, he went to bike night last night.
Yeah.
By the time he got home, I was, like, half asleep.
I told
It was,
him,
like, 10 or
yeah, what we're
10:30.
going to do this next time, it's going to be, we're going to do a camp show. And he's horrified. He's like, what?
He's horrified.
You guys are going to whore yourself out? And I said, we were whores.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
What's wrong with that?
Have you been listening to our stories and who we hang out with? Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the cat's out of the bag then.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're still gonna keep the show, but we're gonna open up. We got another studio we're gonna set up in here, and we're gonna do some fucking cam work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's gonna be funny.
Yeah.
It's gonna have horror themes and cosplay, and it's gonna have its own Twitter and its own Instagram. It's gonna have real fucking hot photo shoots of Jen and little clips and stuff, and you guys will like it.
Yeah, it's going to take us a while to get us all together.
Yeah, it's going to take a while. There's shit we got to do.
Yeah.
And we got to do a bunch of test stuff. And we're going to film we're going to video some scenes and shit. And yeah,
That's a nice
those
way
will be
to
for
put it.
sale. You know, none of this shit's going to be free. It's going to be for sale, you know.
Right. Well, yeah.
But it's going to definitely be branded. You guys will recognize exactly everything that's going on, man. I'm going to dress up as Bane.
Yeah.
Well,
I was kind of
picturing
picturing it like a sidetrack show.
Yeah.
But going many steps farther.
Yeah. Yeah, for the right price, fucking some shit will go down. I might be dressed up in a wolf costume, like a werewolf. They can't tell. I might be on trend. Who knows? We will definitely be drinking.
Well, yeah. That's going to be the fun of it.
Yeah. And I got a huge supply of Viagra.
He's already prepared.
Yeah. I'm ready to go. Yeah. It's going to be fun, though.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And we'll see. I mean, we just need other income streams. I mean, Jenny's now working a full-time job. She's not all that happy with it. Fucking, she wants to work for herself. And we're really used to working for ourselves from our own home office here. We got enough equipment, enough talent where we could do whatever we wanted. It's just we needed quick income that was reliable, so Jenny just had to go back to work.
Yeah.
But it's temporary. We're gonna come up with some cool shit.
Yeah, we'll try to find something
Yeah.
else to do. Like I said, I'm you know, at this stage of my life, I'm like, I've really never been cut out for like normal
Yeah.
life or normal jobs and stuff.
We're both basically entertainers. Yeah.
So we'll figure something out.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun.
Thank you, Jack Torrance.
What do you say?
Just said, here's Johnny.
Okay,
yes, there
yeah.
you are.
Yeah.
Danny Rolling said Tom should one up Jenny and get some dermal piercings on his areolas. Just saying. Yeah, he's never gonna do that.
No. After I've done that myself and realized how tough that material is, I'm never gonna let anybody fucking shove a fucking needle through there. The first time I went through one,
you did mine though.
I had to keep a stiff upper lip. Going through that first one, I was like, God damn, I didn't really want to go through that second one.
I didn't want you to. I didn't want you to either.
I was like, man, that shit
I was really,
tough.
I was like, man, I really need to like take a few hour break and like, and then I was like dreading it. Like we sat there and watched a movie, and the whole time I was like, oh, I don't want to.
I was thinking like, that shit wasn't too pleasant. I thought it would just slip in and out because I put needles through myself all the time doing injections and shit. I thought it would just be like going through butter. No, it was more like going through a real hard rubber. And it was cracking and popping and shit. Fucking
some Goodyear titties. That's what that is.
Yeah.
Goodyear titties.
Yeah, the nipple is a fucking very elastic material. I wasn't expecting that.
Just, in case you didn't know.
Yeah.
Tammy says, "Oh my God, I saw Renfield last night. Really recommend it."
Okay.
Oh, good. Like it looked super funny. Like I really, really wanted to see it. And matter of fact, speaking of Nicolas Cage, because Nicolas Cage is in it, and I think American Military 100 mentioned earlier, there is a movie about this case that we're going to be talking about tonight, Robert Hansen. And it's called The Frozen Ground. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it for free. And indeed, I was watching it for free. I didn't get to watch the whole thing. I watched probably like a little over half of it. I started watching it on my phone, like on my lunch hour. And then when I got home, like I put it on, but I didn't get... It seemed okay. Like American Military 100 said he thought it sucked, but I thought it was pretty good. But they dramatized some of the stuff. It's fairly accurate, it seemed like, up to a point. But they did kind of like dramatize some of the stuff and like made a couple of the people like bigger characters than they were in real life, just like they would do in a movie, you know what I mean? And then Danny Rowling is also talking about the Beast of Jersey, which we will get around to doing him like eventually. Like I said, I keep putting him in the poll and he never wins, you know what I mean? Because I want to do him on a show on him too. Danny Rowling also said city morgue worker Kenneth Douglas was convicted of more than 100 necrophilia rapes, would have gotten along with tonight's guest. Yeah, probably. This motherfucker... I don't know. I feel like I say that like every time we do a serial killer show. I'm like, this is like the worst motherfucker ever. This dude, this is one of the few people that actually did shit like this, and this is some fucking cold-blooded shit this dude did.
Yeah, I remember him, but I don't remember all the details. He's basically reenacting a fucking Most Dangerous Game story, just capturing people and releasing them and hunting them down. Girls.
Yeah.
Hookers.
I mean...
Yeah.
This dude is just like a piece of shit. I mean, like I said, serial killers by their nature are a piece of shit, but this dude,
yeah, I don't know the whole details, but we'll find out.
Fuck, man.
It's just
like I said, he just seemed like a complete fucking psychopath. And this is another case too that it just kind of makes me mad. And I know it was like the 60s and 70s and shit, but it's like this is another dude that so many times got caught for shit and just like got off with like a slap on the wrist and should not have. You know what I mean? Like nowadays, he'd get caught one time and they'd be like, "Yeah, we're putting this motherfucker away because we know what that's leading to." Yeah. But back then they were like, "Oh, it's fine. Yeah. It's fine.
It's just a minor problem."
Yeah, and then they would just let him go, and then look what happened. So you know what I mean? That's it. I don't know. It just made me angry. Like, and I know that it's easy to say like because hindsight's 20/20 and blah blah blah. Like, yeah, we know what a monster he was now. And back then they didn't know that, but I just feel like a few times they absolutely should have kept him incarcerated for much longer than they did, or they like just let him go because of just lame ass shit, because they thought that he wasn't a threat. And I'm like, well, I beg to differ. He absolutely was.
I would probably do the way he looked.
Yeah, he was. He was real unassuming. And another thing too was that he was kind of like an upstanding member of the community, which Yeah. You should never.
You're like a raider.
Yeah, you should never. Yeah, you should never just like use that as like, oh, he's probably not a serial killer. I'm like, that doesn't mean they can't be a serial killer.
Serial killer and just say, I did other things. I did some good for the community. It was, yeah, I had some problems. I had some sexual problems, but I worked at the church and I did a lot of good stuff. Kept stray dogs out of the neighborhoods. Make sure everybody's lawns were cut.
Make sure no one's dogs were pooping in the yard.
I think it was a net benefit. I think I was a net benefit to the community. Yeah. I mean, it was only a couple women.
Yeah, I mean, there's millions of people in the world.
Yeah. No ones are born every day. They would have died eventually anyway.
He probably did think some shit like that.
Oh, yeah, of course.
That's probably how they justify it.
They would have died eventually anyway. Yeah.
This motherfucker too seemed like he wasn't an incel because like he did have wives and kids and stuff like that, but he was one of those motherfuckers that I'm getting back at all the women of the world because women didn't like me, like girls didn't like me in school, like one of those kind of motherfuckers.
Yeah, they're bad. Let me get some more ice.
Yeah. So, you know, there's that too. So, I mean, the dude's he's ticking off all the boxes, isn't he? Danny Rowling said, there's an 81 film worth reviewing called Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker. Oh, yeah, that's right. It's on Shudder, or it was. I don't remember if I watched it, though. I was going to watch it, but then I don't think I got around to it. Yeah, Camp Guy said, I think this guy had a living room or den full of mounted animal heads and trophies. That's kind of creepy to me. Yeah, he was actually, he was well known as like a hunter, like where he lived. Like he even had some shit like in the record books and stuff like that, like biggest doll sheep like killed or whatever it was, you know what I mean? He was a crossbow hunter too. And like I said, he was known around there for being like a really good hunter. Nobody knew he was hunting people though until like later on. So, you know, that's nice. Yeah, Murder Hornet said, this is how Tara was visibly upset. Yeah. And some of these girls that got killed, these girls and women, well, some of them were just girls because some of them were teenagers, but yeah, they were also visibly upset. And they're asking about Evil Dead Rise. I want to see that too. And let's see, Xanad is here, and well, I'm just looking at all this stuff. Okay. Oh, and Zach says, I have a topic recommendation. Hold on, I can't see that. Arnfinn Nesset, one of the only Norwegian serial killers, a nurse who poisoned a bunch of elderly people. See, I'm always kind of fascinated by that kind of stuff, too. I know we did, like, an Angels of Mercy show where we covered, I think, 3 or 4 different cases of motherfuckers that did that. Because that does seem like a lot of female serial killers will go that route, where they just, like, poison people in hospitals.
Wasn't there a nurse that was killing newborns?
Yeah, well, that's been more than one. There was a British one that was doing that. And, yeah, and I still want to go back to like some of the old days ones, like Amelia Dyer and stuff like that, like that baby farmer lady and all that kind of shit.
Throwing them in the Thames and shit.
Yeah, well, all the bodies got thrown in the Thames back then. Yeah, I mean, it was just like, I don't know if it was this bad, but I do kind of feel like in the Victorian era, like the Thames was just like one big like mat of just decomposing bodies because there were like people were just dying and like throwing them, and it was just like shit and everything.
Sewage, I think.
Yeah, it was raw sewage pretty much. It's not that bad anymore, but you know what I mean? Back then, they were just like, they had no clue. They're just like, yeah, let's just live in filth.
Yeah.
Why not? Why are we sick all the time?
Well, there wasn't any community planning or anything either.
That's true.
I don't think they really planned centralized irrigation and wastewater and all that. That came later, but I mean, I don't even think in some of those European cities they didn't have a way to get rid of the horse shit. You just had horse shit piling up.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I probably recommended it before, but there's like a really great book called The Ghost Map, and it's about how they found the cure for, or how they figured out what caused cholera, and it was just like this one neighborhood and like this one doctor, because back then everybody thought that, you know, just bad smells like made you sick. You know what I mean? They didn't realize that it's like, oh, drinking shit water was probably not good for you. So it's just kind of like sewage was like leaking into like these water pumps in these particular neighborhoods. And this one doctor, you know, against all odds, because everyone else thought he was crazy, he like very meticulously went and was like, okay, well, this family got sick and died, like, and he like mapped it out from each water pump, like in the neighborhood, and like where the shit was coming from and stuff like that.
You would think the concept of cross-contamination would be a given. That
you would think that would be
if you were to piss in a tub of water and then went back and drank it, you'd go back and drink it. You would know that would not be good.
Because even animals are grossed out by their own waste.
Yeah. For
exactly that reason.
I don't know what the thinking is. Well, it went into the water cleaned it.
Maybe.
Or it's
water's clean, so anything I put in there is washing it.
And you wash it so the water cleaned it, so you can now drink it. I don't fucking understand. You would think that shit and piss are fucking. You see it going into the same fucking river you're drinking out of, and you drink downstream of it, because no matter where you go in the river, you're always downstream of it. Because there's somebody throwing some shit in piss in the river.
There's always somebody throwing shit in the river.
In relation to where you're standing. So I ain't gonna drink that water. You know what I mean? But I don't think they drank out of the Thames. But
you might have had to if you were poor.
I think they would have known that was not good. For some reason, they thought that the water in the wells was good. Maybe they didn't know what the water table was.
Yeah, maybe not. I kind of feel like a lot of people back then didn't know much of anything. Drinking poop water. They're like, why is everybody dying? I don't understand.
Given enough distance, clay and sand and mud will filter stuff.
Well, sure.
But then if it gets totally saturated, it can't filter because it's just all in there. You know what I mean? It's just going through a fucking sponge of piss. Big old piss sponge. Yeah.
Man, this has been a really pleasant show.
Let's get on top. We're getting off top.
Goodyear boobs and piss sponges.
Yeah.
That's the shit that you won't get anywhere else except on this fucking show. All right, so let's talk about this motherfucker. So this all took place in Alaska, in and around Anchorage. Now, the thing about it, okay, we'll get into, I don't necessarily, usually I would do stuff from like, chronological timeline, but I don't think I'm going to do that this time. I think I'm going to go like from, not necessarily the discovery of the first body, but the discovery of the first body where they realized that maybe something was amiss, and then we'll kind of like go back and like pick it up. Because this guy had been killing people, they found out later, since I think 1971, but they didn't actually catch him until 1983. So in that time, they believe that he killed at least 17 women, possibly as many as 21, and possibly more than that. I've also seen the number 37 thrown around. And on top of that, he also, that they know of, raped an additional 30 women that he did not kill. So, and, so he's dead now. He died in 2014 in prison, thankfully.
So how many did he kill again?
17. They think. At least that many.
At least that
many.
All right, and then...
But probably more.
And then probably raped about 30 that he didn't.
That he didn't kill, at least. Like I said, there's probably more, because it was a long period of time where he was doing
Dude was a serious misogynist, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair statement to make.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair statement to make.
Yeah.
He was, the thing about it, I think that he was one of those guys, he was a very Madonna whore type of guy. Like, I kind of, because he had a wife, and then, like, he had a second wife. Like, he had 2 wives. Not at the same time, obviously. But, so he did have a family. Like, he had kids and stuff. So I kind of feel like he made a distinction between,
He was compartmenting good girls and bad girls.
Good girls and bad girls, yeah. Okay. And so if you were, a sex worker, then you were just trash and you deserved whatever happened to you, kind of thing. Which, is sadly was a very common, and I think the reason, the fact that even some in law enforcement had that view as well, maybe went some way toward why he kept getting away with shit, or, why it took so long to catch him. Because a lot of the women that went missing, like, no one really looked for them. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So they didn't really find shit out until later on.
Yeah, we've been over this before, and other serial killers that take prostitutes. I think part of it is that the cops kind of give up real quick. Well, she's a prostitute. And see, the thing is you can't trace who she's been with.
Right.
Because they're moving around in secret. It's many dudes a day. And you'll never be able to figure it out through police work. And her body would be cross-contaminated anyway, probably with DNA. They didn't have DNA back then anyway. So she'd have been contaminated with fibers and different hairs, and you'd never figure out who it was.
And I think a lot of times, too, what happened in this case was that, a lot of them were going missing, but they were just like, well, they're sex workers.
They moved away.
It's Alaska. It was a very transient population at the time, which we'll get into a little bit. And so, it happens all the time. They just move on to another place. They don't like it here anymore. Or, something like that. So they didn't really, even if they were reported missing, which a lot of them were, by family members or employers or whatever, they didn't really look for them all that hard. They only really found them later on, like after they first started to realize that maybe there was something.
Well, another thing is that law enforcement can't really look for them. They don't have time. They can't. There's too many.
Yeah, that's true.
They find them. And they go, oh, here she is.
Yeah.
Yeah, dead. Okay. They can't find them. They don't have time. They got other shit they got to worry about. Active
Yeah.
crimes involved. Active crimes.
Yeah, and I mean that's what's sad, and
Yeah.
that's the thing. And I think that, and this guy in particular, Robert Hansen, and I'm thinking of also like some other serial killers, people like the Long Island serial killer and stuff like that. Is they know that law enforcement are not, that usually sex workers are lower priority, like when they go missing or when they get murdered or whatever. So a lot of times they will, specifically target them.
They'll try to look for a child, but then that might only be the day that the child went missing.
Yeah.
And then but the trail goes cold quickly.
Yeah.
They'll put out APBs and fucking try to figure out what vehicle the kid got taken in. But finding somebody, especially back in those days, is a lot harder than you think. And the police have to do their normal job. Their normal daily job. They're doing, they're holding down fucking crime and conducting traffic and all that kind of shit. They have the baseline that they have to do, and then all the detectives are going to be busy with crimes that they know happened, like they have bodies and that they have to fucking find out who killed these people. A missing person. It's not really a crime. It's just a missing person.
Especially if it's an adult.
Yeah.
And that's what, I even watched, because there's an FBI files about this, and then there's, a British one that was good. And one of the cops on there even said that. It's it's not illegal for an adult to go missing, on purpose. So it's you can't, even if they get reported missing, that's not real.
Doesn't mean anything.
Unless there's, some reason to think that something really bad happened to them.
Like a break-in, and then there's blood. And
right, yeah, obviously they're going to do that.
Then the car's gone, yeah.
But if a girl, if a woman who's, in her 20s, who, was a dancer in a club or something like that, and she just doesn't show up one day, they're going to be like, oh, well, she just moved on to other pastures or whatever. They don't really
got
worry
a boyfriend
that much
and
about
scrammed.
Yeah, they don't really worry that much about it, which in some cases that is what happens.
Yeah.
So that's why they think that, but not in these cases.
Mostly what happens.
That's that's what I mean. Yeah. So it's just kind of where they always, if a teenager disappears, they always kind of, they're a runaway. Which, if they turn up dead later on, that looks really bad on them. But most of the time, they do turn up all right. You know what I mean? They did just run away or something else happened. So, there's a reason why they think that. But like I said, hindsight's 20/20. These women obviously did not go missing of their own volition. Some bad shit happened to them. So, like I said, even though his crimes probably started in the early 70s, but he didn't really get caught until about the 80s when they first figured out what the hell was going on. So this is happening right around Anchorage, Alaska area. Now, in the 70s and 80s, Alaska was kind of because they were building that oil pipeline or whatever, so that was kind of where you went. Because remember I said it was a really transient population? They said it was kind of like the Wild West out there, because people were coming out to work on the oil rigs. There was a lot of money to be made out there. So you got an influx of people, and they said it was real common for people who, maybe were trying to escape their life in the lower 48. Maybe they had some stuff that they were running away from. Some crimes or something like that. So a lot of them be like, well, I'm just going to start over, in Alaska. So the population was very transient. You just had all these dudes working on oil rigs. And then they had in Anchorage in particular, they had this one strip, a red light district, like you would in any kind of Old West type of thing, where all of these girls and dancers were. And there was very, very common, prostitution was very, very rampant. And there was also a lot of crime as well. So 1982, it was September of 1982 to be specific. So there's these two guys, and they're out hunting. They're actually off-duty police officers. And, it's Alaska, it's wilderness largely. So I don't know, if you're not from the United States, Alaska is more than twice as big as Texas, and most of it is wilderness. So, a lot of people go there for outdoors type stuff. They go hunting.
It was twice as big as Texas.
It's more than twice as big. It's massive.
That's 4 times the size of Germany.
It's massive.
Yeah.
But like I said, the population is relatively low. So most of it is just a barren wasteland kind of.
That's where Bigfoot would be.
Yeah. Bigfoot lives in Alaska.
Yeah, he's up in Alaska.
But yeah, so there's a lot of hunting up there. There's black bear, there's moose, there's all that kind of stuff. So these two guys, whose names were John Daly and Audie Holloway, as I said, they were both police officers from Anchorage, and they were out hunting one day on their day off along a river called the Kinnick River. Now, the two guys, they'd been hunting all day, and they're like, okay, well, it's getting dark, and they decided they were going to set up camp for the night. Now, as they're going along the river, they see what appears to be a boot sticking out of the ground. Now, they didn't think anything about it at first. They just thought, maybe somebody lost a shoe, or sometimes it was like, dead hikers or dead hunters. That happened a lot too. Because, a hunter would get lost, or somebody was hiking or something like that, and they succumb to the elements because it's cold as fuck up there. So, because they were both cops, though, they're like, maybe we should probably check that out. So they go over there and they move the shoe, and they found underneath the shoe, probably not surprisingly, like a partially decayed foot and leg. So since they were both cops, they knew, okay, we need to not. They just backed off the scene. We don't touch anything. We'll just call for backup and everything like that. So they get all the cops out there. They're taking pictures of everything and all that other kind of stuff. So they also started to they were looking for evidence, of what had happened to this person, because they said that it had clothes on, and it was clearly not a hiker. Like, it didn't have, the body didn't have clothes on that connoted a hiker. So they start sifting through the sand, and they find a single shell casing from a .223 caliber bullet. One of the cops recognized it and said, "Oh, that's a high-powered rifle, ammunition, right? Like a M16, Mini 14, or an AR-15."
Technically, if he said high-powered rifle, he knows what he's talking about. It's intermediate. It's an intermediate rifle cartridge. It's in between rifle and pistol. High-powered is a lot bigger, like 30-06, 308, 7mm Magnum, But it's about that long. The .22 caliber bullet, but it's usually spire point, and the casing that holds all the powder is a lot bigger than .22 caliber. It's almost as big as a long 9mm cartridge, and it's next down to .22. It's not weak, but it's not strong either. It's in the middle.
So they take the body back to Anchorage and do the autopsy. So they find that this individual was a woman. They weren't sure how old she was. They thought she had been dead because of the rate of decay for about 6 months. Cause of death was 3 gunshot wounds from the .223 caliber bullets. They found ace bandages in with the remains, so they surmised that she had been blindfolded. Interestingly, too, and this was something that happened with several of his victims, is that even though when the bodies were found, they were clothed, the clothing did not have any bullet holes in them, suggesting that the women were naked when he killed them, and then he redressed them before burying them, because he's a fucking freak.
So there wouldn't be a bullet hole in the clothing, but there would be in the body.
Right.
How many shell casings did they find on this scene?
At this particular scene, they just found the one, but they found 3 bullet holes in her.
Okay. He's using something like a Mini 14. We'll see.
That is what he's using.
That's what he's using? Yeah, okay.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, that's what he's using.
Well, I just thought I would tell you, so you
okay.
It is a Mini 14.
Because it's semi-automatic and it's 5.56, and in that day, it would have only been Colt SP1, which was like a semi-auto M16, or the Ruger Mini 14, which is what you saw in the A-Team. Remember that movie, The A-Team? That's what they were using.
I mean, I haven't seen the A-Team in such a long time.
I've owned them. M16 is much better, a lot more accurate. But Mini 14 was cheaper. It had a wooden stock. It looked like a .30 carbine, and it looked more like a traditional rifle. They're just kind of mediocre. They weren't very good at full auto, but that's what not many military sales with it. More of a civilian rifle. Some prison guards used it. I think the Italian Navy used a stainless steel version of it. That's about it. Not very remarkable. They had full auto versions. They weren't very good, though. Not very controllable.
Camp Guy is talking about some other serial killers that specialized in prostitutes. Samuel Little. Oh, yeah, we did a show about that motherfucker. Gary Ridgway. Yep. Anthony. That's Sowell. It's Sowell, isn't it? Anthony Sowell. Yeah, like I said, a lot of serial killers do kind of... And whoever the... there's like the Santa Rosa hitchhiker murder. Some of them were prostitutes. Texas Killing Fields, a lot of them were prostitutes, stuff like that. Because they think those were probably truckers, those serial killers. So it took about 2 weeks, but they finally identified this young woman as 24-year-old Sherry Morrow. Now, she had been a topless dancer at a club called the Wild Cherry Bar in Anchorage, like on the red light district there. Now, she had actually been missing for several months. She was last seen alive in November of 1981. Sorry, I couldn't see it there for a second. And the last thing that she told her friends was that she had an appointment, like a guy had offered her $300 to pose for some photographs. Like he said he was a photographer.
And a lot of money back then.
Yeah, this is back in like 1981.
Yeah.
So, so that was quite a bit of money. So,
like $600.
Right. That was the last anybody saw of her, and she had been reported missing, but they found her 6 months later. Now, this particular body being found, this was not the first situation like this that had arisen. It's just that prior to this, the police were still sort of holding out hope that these crimes were unrelated. You know what I mean? But, finding this one, they're like, okay, we're pretty sure that this is a serial killer now. But in the 2 years prior to this, there had actually been not just bodies found, but there had been like a kind of a spike in missing persons reports, and many of them were of the same type. They were usually younger women, like from 16 to 28 years old. Were usually kind of like smaller, like 120 pounds, like kind of smaller petite women, and they were usually sex workers or topless dancers or something like that. Not always, but a lot of them were, and a lot of them had been reported. Like I said, there had been a spike in it. So, but before that, like I said, the cops were just kind of like, well, a lot of these women just kind of like take off. And indeed, like some of the women that were reported missing, they did find them like alive and well later on. So they were like, oh, we'll see, not all of them, but some of them obviously they didn't find. So they also wanted to forestall. They were like, well, if there is a serial killer out there, we don't want to make too big a stink about this, like in case, like we don't want him to like take off, you know what I mean? Like, because he'll know we're onto him or whatever. So basically, though, and I saw like a documentary where they were talking about this, is that so now they've had this body that was found, and then they had like all these other women missing, and they'd actually had kind of a press conference where they specifically kind of came out and said, we don't think these cases are related. I don't know if they actually thought they were related at that time, or if they were just saying that, like I said, to keep everybody calm or whatever. But they didn't think it was one person at first. So essentially what they did then was that they started looking back after they found Sherry Morrow's body. They started looking back at some of these other, like a couple of other bodies that they had found previously. So they went back to this one case from 1980, which was still unsolved. Actually, there were two cases from 1980, but the first one that they looked into, there was actually these workers, like they were digging like they're construction workers or whatever, and they were digging near a place called Aklitna Road, and they found remains in buried in a shallow grave, like a woman's body. Now the body was only partly there because wildlife, it's Alaska, so it had been partially eaten. And there wasn't really anything. I don't think they found any shell casings or anything like that. Now sadly, this woman has never been identified, this woman that they found. They still call her Eklutna Annie, and that's the only name that she's gone by. They still have not identified her to this day. Now, later on in 1980, they also found another body, like in a gravel pit, like not too far away. I think it was like only a mile or two away. Now, this victim was actually identified later on. This was a woman named Joanne Messina. She was also a topless dancer. And they didn't really find much evidence with her body either, and her body was also very, very decomposed.
I wonder if the implication is that these topless dancers were pulling tricks on the side.
Well, yeah, they were.
They were?
Some,
Okay.
Yeah, some of them were.
Okay.
Well, because either that or... It's hard to say, because the way that Robert Hansen would usually get them was if they were open to sex work, he would just say, hey, can I have a blowjob for whatever? And they would just get in the car. Or I think if they weren't down, then he would say, I'm a photographer and I'll give you money to take pictures of you, pretty much.
Right. Now, he would make that offer to strippers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was enough to get your ass killed?
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
All right.
I mean, the weird thing about it, too, is that sometimes they found out later on he didn't kill everybody he picked up.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because remember, like I said, they think he killed at least 17 women, probably more. But they think that he also just raped at least 30 women that he didn't kill.
So he must have thought if you were stripping and taking photos and shit, you were bad. So he could rape you. Not necessarily kill you, though.
We'll get into that in a minute, because
he must have had echelons.
He said some shit.
Yeah.
One thing that he said, like, really kind of struck me, like, when they went to...
Should you save it?
Well,
Okay.
Because we're getting to that part.
Yeah, okay.
We're getting to that part. So, like I said, they're investigating these 3 bodies that they found. Like I said, they found 2 in 1980, one of them unidentified, and those cases never really went anywhere because there wasn't really any evidence and the bodies were really decomposed. And then they found Sherry Morrow in 1982. Again, they found a shell casing, but that was about it. I mean, obviously they knew she'd been murdered and they knew that, like, something really bad had happened, but they didn't really have that much to go on. So at this point, like I said, they're starting to think maybe this is the same guy, but they couldn't really go forward with it. However, I was going to say luckily, but not really, but I guess luckily in the sense of, like, the helping to finally catch the motherfucker. Not luckily for the girl, though. What ends up happening in June of 1983? There's this truck driver, and he's driving through town, like down, I believe it was 6th Avenue. And he sees a half-naked young woman with handcuffs on, waving his truck down. And
How was she waving his hand?
She like that.
Oh, okay.
She was like that.
Handcuffs were in front of her.
Like, screaming for help.
Yeah.
Right? And so he stops, thankfully, and she gets in, and she's like, a man is after me, just fucking drive, right? Like, he's gonna kill me. Now, she wanted to be taken to the Big Timber Motel, which I guess that was where she was living. So she gets to the motel. She asks the desk clerk to call her boyfriend. She doesn't call the police. And then she, like, waits outside for the boyfriend.
Okay, I get it.
Now, the truck driver, he's like, well, I'm gonna call the police.
Yeah.
So
She
he
didn't call the police because she was out there turning tricks.
Well, yeah, which honestly, like, considering what happened to this poor girl, I think I probably would. But the thing about it is that, you know, she's a sex worker. She probably hasn't had that many good experiences with cops. You can see how she probably was, like, not...
She's probably just trying to get the fuck out
like,
of there.
I'm just going to get the fuck out of here and forget this ever happened. Like, I get it, you know what I mean? But, yeah. So the truck driver, he dropped her off, and then he went to the Anchorage Police Department and,
Which is the right thing
and reported it,
Let the cops know that motherfucker's out there hunting.
Yeah, like, because they found out later that he was chasing her.
Oh, yeah.
With his gun, and he was like, I'm gonna kill you, you bitch, and blah, blah, blah. And she was, like, running her fucking ass off.
Was she supposed to be handcuffed, or did she get away early?
She got away early.
Oh, that's what I figured. He was gonna take the cuffs off of her.
Yeah, we'll get into that, because we'll get into that, like, what happened. So, So the officers show up at the Big Timber Motel where the girl was. So he finds her there. She's still got the handcuffs on because she couldn't get them off. So he took them off for her. And, he's like, what the fuck happened to you? So she told him. She says, this guy walks up to me. And she gave a very good description of him. She said he was about 40-ish. He had kind of red hair. He was kind of slightly built, had big glasses, had a stutter, and kind of a pockmarked expression, or complexion, rather. Like, acne.
Acne scars.
Yeah. And she said that he said that he would give me $200 to give him a blowjob.
Oh, man.
So, I mean, in 1983...
She should have known something was wrong.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money in 83.
Yeah.
She's probably more used to hearing like $40.
You'd think. Yeah, I'm not really sure what the going rate was in 1983. I don't know what the going rate is now, to be honest. But
depends on the caliber of the
I guess.
on the caliber of the woman.
I guess.
Yeah.
So she's like, okay. But she gets in the car and she starts to do it, and he put the handcuffs on her and like put a revolver to her temple, like in like one motion.
Damn, he's fast.
Yeah. Well, they found out later that he'd done it a bunch of times, and he called it muscle memory. Yeah. Because he'd done it so many times. He just
do it automatically.
Yeah, he just did it really fast. So he basically says, well, if you just do what I want, then I won't kill you. Which, great.
Famous last words.
Yeah. So then he drove her to his house, which was kind of like a nice area.
So she saw his house.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so he takes her inside, takes her to his, what he called his den, which is kind of like his trophy room. And it's, like I said, he was an avid outdoorsman and hunter, and he had a whole room, like it was like a man cave, but it had just like deer heads and bear heads and just all that kind of shit, like all over the place. So like a little creepy, you know what I mean? So he takes her down there, chains her to a pole, like a pole like in the middle of the room.
So I guess he's not with his wife when he's doing this.
His wife at this instance was away. Okay. Like him, and he had 2 kids too.
They were away too?
The wife and the kids I think were in Europe.
All right.
They were on vacation.
All right. So he's feeling comfortable.
Yeah. So he horribly raped her several times, sodomized her, bit her nipples.
Damn. Bit them off or just bit them?
I don't think he bit them off. I mean, Jesus Christ, I can imagine.
As tough as those things are, but damn.
Yeah, now that we've had some experience with that. But and also she said shoved a hammer up into her vagina.
Damn.
So he does this to her like over several hours. And then he decides he's going to take a nap for some reason because it wore him out.
He's tired, yeah.
I guess, and I'm just like
oxytocin.
And she's like chained to the shit, going like, holy fucking, I can't imagine what was going through that poor girl's head. Seriously.
Oh man, she's fucking freaking.
I would be freaking. I mean, seriously.
How long did he sleep?
I don't know.
Okay.
So he gets back up and he says, "Oh, I really like you. I'm going to fly you out to my cabin in the woods, and you can stay with me for a while."
Oh, oh, great.
Like I've done that with some other girls, that I liked. You can like stay with me. I won't hurt you or anything like that. I'm like, motherfucker, you already hurt me. Yeah. What the fuck are you talking about? And she said later on that she because I read some of her transcript, and she was like, he just kept saying, "Don't worry about it." I'm like, motherfucker, I'm worried. Okay. Just Jesus Christ. And she even said later on, she said the fact that he told me that he had taken 7 other girls up there, she immediately knew he killed those girls.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like she knew the fucking score.
Right. Because she would have heard about it.
Right.
They were alive.
Right. So so she's like flipping out. And at this point, she said, I think it was at this point that she decided, first opportunity, I got to get the fuck out of here because he's gonna fucking kill me. So
that's good thinking. If you guys ever know anything about survival, escape, and evasion from military, they say your best chances of escape are when you're first getting captured, because you're healthy and you're fucking aware. You're well fed. That's the time to escape. As soon as you get captured, it's your best times. Okay, go ahead. And another thing is you want to escape when in the middle of a snowstorm or a fucking rain downpour, anything that'll slow down vehicles.
I mean, they always tell you to don't let the motherfucker take you to a second location. Don't let them be taken.
Never let a person take you anywhere alive. Make them kill you on the spot. If they take you somewhere, it's going to be worse than death anyway.
Yeah.
The problem is a lot of women don't have a choice. Dude comes up, knocks them out, pow!
Yeah,
and
that
throws
happens
them in
a
a
lot
fucking
too.
vehicle.
Yeah, you don't really have a choice.
There's no
then.
choice because they can pick you up. Most women don't weigh anything. But if you get a chance, if a dude says get in the car, I'll shoot you. Go fucking shoot me. Yeah.
Just run.
Yeah, he'll shoot you in the back.
Run zigzag.
Yeah, run zigzag. Yeah.
I mean, anything. Like I said, it'd be better to be shot than like whatever the fuck he's gonna do.
Yeah, because he's got something in store. You're not gonna want to go through it.
No. So yeah, look what happened to this poor girl. And I mean, she did get away though. So he's like, all right, I'm gonna fly you to my cabin up in the mountains. And she's like, oh yay. So she's like she's like, I kind of like pretended that I wanted to go and like I wanted to go along. You know what I mean? So he drives her to Merrill Airfield, which is where his plane was. He had like a little Piper Super Cub or whatever. And then now I've seen two different sources of this. Either he was packing up the plane and she was still in the car, or he shoved her in the plane and then started packing the plane up. I don't really know, like either way. I thought she was still in the car. You know what I mean? But some things said that that he put her in the plane. But at any rate, he turned his back for a second, to load some things into the plane. She said she specifically saw him loading a rifle into the plane and was like, oh, fuck no. I need to get the fuck out of here. This girl had the presence of mind. She took off her tennis shoes and left them in the car so she could prove that she'd been in there. Like, when she reported it later on. I'm like, can you imagine having that much fucking, like, thinking that much ahead?
She was just naked with tennis shoes on?
She was, I don't know if she was naked, but she was, like, not all of that dressed. You know what I mean? Like, she had some clothes on, but I don't think she had many clothes on. But she still had shoes on. Now, it was pretty cold out.
You'd think it'd be hard to run without the shoes.
Well, I mean, if you're running for your life, I'm sure you would kind of like... Yeah, she was running barefoot, like, down the fucking road. When the trucker picked her up. Yeah. So, but yeah, she had...
Well, you said the trucker said she was naked.
Well, see, I don't know. I've seen two things. I've seen different things, like the sources. Some of them said she's, like, mostly naked. Most of them say she was, like, half naked. Okay. Like, when I saw the reenactment, it looked like she was just wearing, like, a torn-up shirt and underwear.
All right. Because he was driving around in a car.
Right.
He was driving around a car. He couldn't drive around totally naked.
Yeah, because people would notice.
People would have noticed.
Yeah. So yeah, but she had the presence of mind to leave her shoes in the car. So, like I said, when she told the police later, like, she could prove that she'd been in there. And then she just busted open the car door and started fucking running. And, the guy, obviously, Hansen, he sees her and starts, like, running after her, and he's like, I'm gonna shoot you, you bitch, blah, 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 and he's like, and she was just like, fuck that, and she just, like, kept on running, and
Did
like
he
I said...
stutter it?
The weird thing is, like, I heard some of his, like, testimony, because they, like, when they interviewed him when they did his confession, they recorded it, obviously, and I heard, like, a lot of clips of it, and he didn't stutter much on there.
Okay.
So I don't... but apparently he had like a really bad stutter. But I didn't notice him stuttering during that particular thing. But maybe that was just because it was short clips or whatever. So,
Or he rehearsed what he was going to say. It was in trial?
No, this was the confession.
He rehearsed what he was saying. He was reading it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe. Well, no, he wasn't reading it. He was just being interviewed.
Okay.
Yeah. But like I said, maybe it was just because there was like snippets. Maybe they cut out the parts where he was stammering. I'm not really sure. So yeah. So she tells all this to the cops. And they actually drove her to Merrill Airfield. And she immediately said, that's the plane. Like, she immediately recognized it. It was like a blue and white, like I said, it's Piper Super Cub. And they also, so they, it had the tail number on it. So they checked with the flight tower and they figured out, like, who it belonged to. And they had the address, Robert C. Hansen from Old Harbor Road. So then they took the girl, whose name was Cindy Paulson, by the way. She was 17 years old. So they took her to the hospital. So then...
This is a 17-year-old girl?
Uh-huh.
Damn, okay.
Like I said.
She was turning tricks?
Yeah.
Damn, okay.
Now, I'm not sure if this is the case, but... Because she's kind of a big character in the, fictionalized movie that they made about, just called The Frozen Ground. And they kind of made her like a really big character, and they kind of made her so it's like, oh, she'd been, on the street since she was 11 or something like that. But I don't know if that's the case. You know what I mean? I think she had been doing it for a while, though. So here's the thing. So all this stuff happened. They find out Hansen's address from the plane because she said that's the plane that he took me in. So they go to his house, and he, so Hansen was home. And they were like, hey, what's all this about this girl named Cindy? And she said that you did all this stuff. And he got really, really mad. And he said, I've never even met her before in my life. She's probably just trying to shake me down for money. That's what he said. And then he says to the cops, you can't rape a prostitute, can you?
Okay.
Yes?
He didn't think so.
So I'm like, so that kind of gives you... an idea of like what his mindset is, that it's like they're not people to him, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you absolutely can.
Or is he trying to say? Well, I paid her. How is that rape? Is that what?
Maybe. I don't know if he did pay her though.
Right. Well, he's probably going to lie to the cops. I paid her.
So that means I can do
Yeah.
whatever
Well, where's
I
the
want.
money?
I can kill her if I
She
want
wants to drop the money. You know?
I mean, that's fucked up. But the fact that he said that, I was just like, I think I'd have just like punched him in the face if he had said that. So, yeah, he said, well, yeah, my wife and kids are in Europe. They're on vacation. But I couldn't have done what you said because me and my two buddies were hanging out all night. Like, I was over at their house. We were just having some beers and having guy time or whatever.
He's saying the wrong things.
And, well, here's the thing. And both of those guys backed up his story.
Oh, really? Okay.
So the cops were like, oh, okay. Well, sorry to bother you, sir.
Got away with it. He had an alibi.
Well, for now.
For now, yeah.
For now. So, yeah. So he gets away with it for a while. However, not too long after that, on September 2nd, 1983.
How did they explain the handcuffs?
See, I think that they were saying, because here's the thing. Not only did Cindy Paulson describe the motherfucker's airplane, she described his car in great detail. She described what he looked like in great detail. She described the inside of his fucking house, including the den and like the thing. Now, the chains weren't there because he had moved them, right? But everything else was exactly as she said. Now, the fact that the cops went and he was like, oh, I never even met that girl, even though she like described every single fucking thing. See, that's the thing though. They were thinking, well, just because she's been in the house, that doesn't prove anything. You know what I mean? It's like maybe
it's a trick gone wrong.
Right. Maybe it was consensual or maybe she just went and maybe she got mad because he didn't pay her enough or something like that. So maybe that's what they were thinking. And the thing about it too was that Cindy, because she was not, I mean, she gave them like, a super detailed description of everything, and you'd think that would be enough. But they asked her to take a lie detector test, and she wouldn't. Because I think she was upset that they didn't believe her. You know what I mean? And she was just like, fuck you guys. Because like I said, she wasn't real trusting of the cops anyway, because she'd been like a sex worker for a while. And I think that kind of pissed her off that they didn't believe her and like were trying to get her to take a lie detector. So she refused. And I think too that was another thing that made the cops was like, maybe she's making it up. Even though, like I said, there's no way she could be making it up because she had all those fucking details. You know
she
what I mean?
probably also thought they were going to ask her things about her other work, and she was afraid she was going to get in trouble.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might have been too. I mean, she was just 17. She's still like a kid, you know what I mean? But that's, so I think that was another thing too, that the cops were just kind of like, shit, like it happens sometimes. And it's like, maybe she just got mad at him and blah, blah, blah. And the thing,
she went back to the streets.
I don't know, actually. But the thing about it too is that another thing you have, and I haven't really got too much into this yet, but Hansen was I mentioned this earlier, an upstanding member of the community. I mean, he owned a very successful local bakery. The cops went in there and got donuts.
Yeah.
All the time, probably.
Get them maple logs.
Right.
Those things haven't went out a long time.
That's all. Yeah. I was just reading about something about a maple log the other day, and I was like, that does sound good, doesn't it? I haven't had a maple log in a long time.
Yeah, like since I was a kid.
But yeah, so
Bear claw.
Yeah.
Yeah, apple berry claw. Man, we gotta get some donuts.
I haven't had donuts in forever.
I'm gonna get another drink. I gotta stop talking about food, man.
We're getting fat just thinking about it. But yeah, so he was very, like I said, he had a wife and a couple kids. He went to church and all that other kind of crap. So it was like a BTK situation where nobody thought that, and he was very kind of like mild mannered and blah blah. Even though if you scratch the surface of that's one thing that kind of makes me mad. And yes, I know it was the 70s and 80s, and yes, I know they didn't have like all the records weren't computerized and shit like that like they are now, so it was like a lot harder, especially if your arrest record was from another state or whatever. But when they first, if somebody had just taken like 10 minutes to like look into this dude's history, they would have found all kind of like sordid shit that would have maybe given them pause and maybe like made them investigate him more, but they just never did that. They were just kind of like, well, it's the word of a 17-year-old sex worker who won't take a lie detector test against an upstanding member of the community who everybody knows. You know what I mean? And so she didn't really have much of a chance. So after that, not too long after that, September 2nd, 1983, they found another body, also along the Kinnick River, not too far from where Sherry Morrow had been found. This woman was later identified as Paula Golding. She was also 17 years old, and also a topless dancer and a sex worker from Anchorage. She had actually been missing. She had been reported missing 5 months prior to her body being found. And when they did the autopsy, they found that, like all the other victims, she had also been shot with a .223 caliber bullet. So, yeah, now they're like, well, duh, this is clearly a serial killer. Now, there's, it's Alaska. They have had their fair share of serial killers. There was a guy named Thomas Bunday, I think. He murdered some women in Fairbanks. So, not Anchorage, but, So basically that dude like killed himself, by the way, like before they arrested him. So what they decided to do in this, hi, your little head popping up. Oh my God. Thank you, Mango. Never trust an upstanding member of the community. I trust Bee's Nest more. Yeah, see, that's what, and I'm not saying that all upstanding members of the community are serial killers. Am I? But no, but I'm just saying that just because someone is an upstanding member of the community, that doesn't mean you can like write them off as a suspect. You know what I mean? Because I feel like that happens too much, especially if the accuser is somebody that's like, oh, they're a heroin addict or they're a prostitute or whatever. It's like, yeah, but that doesn't mean that person didn't do some fucked up shit though.
They're asking me to put a wig on. All right, I'm gonna put a wig on, but I better get a super chat for this shit. Okay.
He's pimping himself out.
Yep.
Don't let Pookie into the closet because she's coming right behind you.
Pookie, you stay right back there. Look at her eyes are huge.
Yeah.
She's like, closet?
Look at her. Every time you open a closet, she tries to go like way around like that because she thinks she can't see her. She's like, world. What? I'm going past around, and then she goes, whoosh, and then she runs in there. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna fucking redneck the fuck out.
Oh, you're putting on your Joe Dirt? Your Joe Dirt?
Rednecking the fuck out.
Oh my God.
Putting on my fucking Kenny Rogers wig.
Do you know when to hold them and know when to fold them?
Yeah. Gotta know when to hold them. Know when to fold them. Know when to walk away. Know when to run. Count your money.
You don't look so much like Kenny Rogers. You kind of look more like, who's that other motherfucker? Shit, I don't remember all the country singers' names. I'm not into that kind of shit.
I don't know, man.
All right.
I'm back in 1981.
Oh, okay. So it is relevant to the show then.
Yeah, it's relevant to the show.
All right. So what they decided to do in this instance, now that they were pretty sure that this was a serial killer, and I kind of feel like a lot of them did think that it was maybe Hansen, but they didn't have enough, evidence. So they decided to call in the FBI to assist on the, on the case. Now, interestingly, this case involved the very famous John Douglas, who, if you don't know, wrote the book that the show Mindhunter was based on, one of the early FBI profilers. Now, interestingly, profiling still kind of in its infancy at this point. Like I said, if you've seen Mindhunter, it kind of goes into the, the birth of the whole criminal profiling deal. But I kind of feel like still in 1983, it was still seen as like voodoo a little bit, maybe. Thank you again, Mango.
Mango.
Damn, it's the missing BG brother.
Yeah, man.
I thought you were going to sing some BG.
I was going to sing, but I can't think of the lyrics, man.
You can't think of the lyrics?
No, I'm good.
Okay, you sure?
I'm good.
I was looking at this. I was looking at the mirror. If this wig was real dark brown and it had an eye patch, that'd be Snake Plissken.
You could dye it, maybe.
Yeah. Might be a little bit.
Danny Rowling said, "Is this killer still alive?" No, he died in prison in 2014 of natural causes when he was 75 years old.
Gonna make porn in this wig.
I don't know if I can get into the porn with you with that hair on.
Okay.
Linwood Sly said, "I saw The Frozen Ground with Nicolas Cage." Yeah, I was just watching it like before the show. I didn't finish watching it. But it was on Amazon Prime, so I started watching it. And yeah, John Cusack plays Robert Hansen, which is crazy. Because John Cusack always seemed like he was such a nice person. And I'm like, for him to play a serial killer, he's pretty scary in that shit. But yeah. So John Douglas, a very famous profiler. So they asked him, him and his team, they sent him all the information that they had about who this killer was. They didn't, say it was Hansen or anything like that, but they're just like, here's all the details about all the cases that we have so far, wow us, make, who is it that's doing this? John Douglas came back, and his team too, because I think it was like a team effort. Ow, my ring got caught in my hair. Look at that. Ouch, ouch, ouch. That was like...
Which ring? Oh, the finger?
Ah,
finger
yeah.
ring? Okay.
Jesus Christ. I swear to God, I can't move without catching on shit.
It's because you're embellished and so pretty.
Isn't that what it is?
That's what it is, yeah.
And yeah, until I go, and I get caught and everything. So, basically, this is what the dude said. He said that this killer will be somebody who was bullied when he was younger, somebody who's probably small of stature, someone who is an upstanding member of the community, someone who is an avid outdoorsman and hunter, someone who has a pronounced speech impediment, either a stutter or a lisp. That's what he said. Isn't that crazy? It's like fucking magic.
Man, they must have listened to the testimony of the girl.
No, I don't think they did though. Because they were like super impressed like when he came back with that. They're like, how the fuck did he know that? You know what I mean? But it was like super suspicious. Yeah. So also, yeah, so when the profile came back, like all the cops were like, holy shit, that sounds just like fucking Robert Hansen. It's like he was talking about him and he's never even met the dude. And also he said this about other serial killers that target prostitutes, they said that is usually somebody that is trying to get back at women as a whole because they felt like women didn't like them. So that's kind of the situation here as well. And he's like getting revenge or whatever. So yeah, as I mentioned, every single one of these points matches Robert Hansen to a T. Like I said, you might as well just be fucking talking about him, even though he wasn't. John Douglas also said that he is a serial killer that will keep souvenirs from his victims. So that's one thing that you want to look out for if you search his house or whatever. So at this point, the cops are still kind of like not sure. The thing about it was that even though a lot of the cops didn't really believe Cindy Paulson's story or didn't think it was as big a deal as she was making it. There was actually at least one cop, I think his name was Greg Baker, and he actually went rogue a little bit and kind of looked into Hansen when he wasn't really supposed to be doing that, because he actually really did believe her, and he said, I think this guy is a serial killer and somebody needs to do something about it.
Which cop was this?
He was one of the cops that investigated the case. Like I said, I think his name was Greg Baker.
So he was an investigator.
Yeah.
Okay.
And or maybe just like an officer, but he was mad that like the other cops weren't really taking it all that seriously, like weren't taking her story all that seriously, and he's like, I'm pretty sure this dude is a monster and we need to get him off the fucking street.
Yeah.
So he kind of did an end run around the other cops and went right to the state troopers, because the state troopers were like the ones finding the bodies and stuff, and he said, I think I know who this dude might be, and so he kind of started working with them like on the down low.
Yeah. For you guys that don't live in the United States, let me explain something. The American law enforcement within a state, and of course there's 50 states, they're kind of divided up. You're going to have, the state is divided up into counties. And inside a county, there might be little municipalities. You're going to have county police, and you're going to have certain city police or town police too. And each one of them are kind of separate organizations. They do kind of work together inside a county. It's like an umbrella thing, but they're all kind of like, in some ways, kind of like private contractors. All right. Well, above all that, at the state level, running from the state capital, are the state police, and those guys answer basically to the governor. It's kind of like the state's version of the FBI. And when it comes to the quality of law enforcement in any state in the United States, those state troopers, the state police, that's the standards of training and recruiting is high. Those are your best ones. They're good, real good. But you might go to some podunk town, population 500 people. There might only be 2 cops there. And they're kind of like, I don't want to call them glorified security guards, but kind of is what they are. They have, some of them are good though, real good firearm skills, especially if they're country boys. They just grew up with guns, but they just don't really have the funding, and they might have 2 vehicles, they just don't have the power to track down something like a serial killer. And because they're kind of, this is a gross generalization, but because small town cops are kind of locally minded and kind of small, I don't want to say small minded, but they're kind of closed minded. So they don't really like to think of anything out of the ordinary. Anything out of the ordinary, they kind of reject it. And a serial killer is out of the ordinary. And some girl telling this wild story of an upstanding citizen tried to hunt her like an animal, they go, oh yeah, bullshit. They would just blow that off. But a state trooper might go, there might be something to that, because that fits patterns of what happened before, especially back in these days. Yeah. Today, that wouldn't fly. Today, they'd crawl up that dude's ass.
And rightfully so. Yeah. They should have done it back then.
But back then, law enforcement wasn't as organized, and they weren't as educated as they are today. And I'll say educated, they had good education, it's just that there was no internet. They couldn't share information across agencies and across departments. So they were kind of isolated. They were low information. That's a good way to put it. And I remember those days. Having low information affected your opinions because you just didn't know.
Yeah.
You didn't know what was normal. You just knew what was normal from your point of view.
Which maybe was kind of like provincial.
Yeah, I had a very provincial idea of what your point of view was. But it's not like that now, really, in the days of the internet. Everywhere in the United States is pretty much like everywhere else in the United States. You'd be out in the middle of nowhere. They got the same internet as everybody else. Their mentality is the same as everywhere else, pretty much. Now, it depends on the generation. The older people, they didn't change much. But you go to a 20-year-old or 25-year-old out in Podunk, he's just like a 20-year-old in New York in a certain way. Same kind of... Because they're growing up more online than anything else.
Mr. 88 said back in those days, a local cop would not know about the murders outside of his jurisdiction and could not see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that definitely played into, because the thing about it, as we will get into when I get into Robert Hansen's background, he had an extensive criminal record, but they didn't really think to check it. You know what I
So
mean?
that was a good idea that he went to the state police.
Yeah, this one
Go on.
cop. I think it was one cop, or I've seen some sources say it was two cops, but one cop in particular really thought, like, he really took Cindy Paulson's story seriously and it's like, we need to do something about this, but nobody was doing anything about it.
Because a smaller town cop could go to the state police and get in front of the right person. Some kind of a high caliber investigator and go, look, some shit's going down in the county where I work, and the small town cops, these small-minded kind of small town cops, are not seeing the big picture. All right, this is what this girl said, and I think this motherfucker's a serial killer. And up there, they'd go, okay, we're gonna look into that shit. Then.
Yeah, because I mean, the state troopers were the ones that had been finding the bodies,
right?
And they were probably starting to suspect some shit too. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And the state police and state troopers have a bigger budget and more time. You know what I mean? So they could go, we're gonna get on that. They have the authority. They're supposed to step in, and go, okay, guys, step out of the way. Let us look at this shit. And that's what they do. They've got seniority.
Yeah. So another thing that John Douglas, the profiler, said, because the cop said, well, the thing about it is that he has a really good alibi for the time that this girl said that he was doing all this stuff to her. John Douglas says to them, I think that he got his friend or his friends to lie for him. So look into that, because I'm pretty sure that this is the dude, right? So basically what they decided to do was kind of lean on the friends a little bit to see if they would kind of go back on the story. And actually what ended up happening was that I think the neighbor that he said he'd been with was named John Henning, I think was his name. And his wife actually came out, like when the cops were searching Hansen's house, she came out and said, hey, what's going on over here? And they said, oh, well, we think that, Hansen has something to do with blah, blah, blah. And she was like, oh, my husband gave him an alibi, but that it was bullshit. Like, they didn't hang out that day. So, you know what I mean? So there went his alibi, and that was, like, pretty much the only thing. But, yeah, he did get, like, people to lie for him. And the weird thing about it was that I'm pretty sure, from what I read of Cindy Paulson's testimony, that she told the cops that he had said that to her. I've got friends who'll lie for me or who'll give me an alibi. I'm pretty sure that she said that he told her that. So I'm assuming she told the cops that. So I don't know why, like, you would think that if she told the cops, hey, he said that he was going to get some people to lie for him, you'd think that they would check that out more. I don't know why they ever just take, like, somebody's word for shit. You know what I mean? Like, especially if it's your buddy or your spouse or something like that. I'm like, that can't be the only reason that you like, oh, well, I guess that's the end of the case then. I guess he's not a serial killer. Like, why would you just take, like, some random motherfucker's word for it? I don't know. I don't know. Just the fact they decided they'd forget. Now, interestingly, so they wanted to get a search warrant for Hansen's house because, like I said, Douglas, the profiler, had said, this is what will probably be in his house. There will probably be, like, all these weapons. There'll probably be all of these, trophies or, like, souvenirs from the victim, stuff like that. So he basically gave them this big, long list of, like, stuff to look for and, like, where it might be and everything like that. Now, they didn't have a huge amount of, like, hard evidence, but they went to get a search warrant. And as far as I know, this case is kind of, like, I believe historic because this is the first time that an FBI profile had been used to obtain a search warrant in the United States. I think this was the first time that had happened, and this was, like, in 1983. So they did get the search warrant, though. Now, another thing that they found out when they were looking into Hansen's background was that, because they thought, well, maybe if they, if there was, like, a lesser charge, they could, like, bring him up on, so, in case, like, the other stuff didn't go through. They found out that he had actually purchased his plane with the proceeds from basically an insurance fraud. What he did was he stole some, like, hunting trophies and shit like that, like, from his own house, and he hid them somewhere. Like, he buried him in the backyard or some shit like that. And then he reported the shit stolen to the insurance company, and they fell for it. So he ended up getting like $13,000, like, in back then money. So he bought a plane with that. And I've also heard that he bought his bakery with that too, because like I said, he owned a bakery. But I don't know if that's true or if he owned the bakery before that. But he for sure like bought the plane with the money from the insurance fraud. So they did find out about the insurance fraud, and they're like, okay, well, maybe we can use that like as a backup. You know what I mean? Because that's totally illegal too. So yeah. So they go with this affidavit. They get the search warrant. So in October of 1983, they basically they went to the bakery and picked up Robert Hansen, and they were going to take him down to the station for questioning. Now, he did not resist. He did not ask them why he was being taken there or anything like that. He was just very, very calm. So they took him down to the station and started questioning him. Now, while they were questioning him for several hours, and this was interesting too, and this was also done at the behest of John Douglas, the profiler, they said when you bring him into the room, he had staged the interrogation room, just particularly for his psychology. So it's like they put out like all like pictures of the victims and stuff. They had everything like arranged in a particular way that like John Douglas recommended. So yeah, so they took him there and they started questioning him. So then meanwhile, like some other officers went and like started searching Hansen's house. Now I believe the wife was home. I don't know how she felt about any of this. As far as anyone knows, his wife didn't know jack shit about shit. She thought, she was like super, super religious too. I think they were Lutherans. I think that at least from a couple of documentaries that I saw, she just thought that he was fucking around. Like, she knew that he was going to prostitutes, but I don't think that she suspected that he was, like, raping and killing them. You know what I mean? I think that was the extent of what she thought he was doing.
She thought he was cheating.
Yeah, she just thought he was, like, you know, cheating on her, but not killing people. Because I just kind of feel like most people wouldn't think that about their spouse. You know what I mean? So... And because you think like, oh, I know this person really well and blah, blah. But you know what I mean? Do you ever really know another person? Probably not.
Yes. You have lived together fucking 24/7 for almost 13 years.
Yeah, I don't think
I got that shit.
Okay. Now we have the same hair. Yeah, I don't think you could be a serial killer because...
I don't have time.
You don't have time. You're never away long enough
I don't have time
to be a serial killer.
I don't have time. I ain't got time for that.
And I mean, I could be a serial killer, I guess.
Nah, you're always in here working.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm always working. I don't have time to be a serial killer. Who's got time?
I'm just going to be heavy metal right now.
Okay.
I'm Danzig.
All right.
Yeah.
So, what?
Either Danzig or Conan. Danzig. Where's my brush?
Look, he came and sit still. I'm trying to talk about like some serious shit.
Go ahead.
And he's just like wandering around. Just like wandering around. Like a 2-year-old. All right.
I'm listening. I'm in the show. I'm here. I can hear you.
Okay.
Just because I step away doesn't mean you should stop.
Okay. So they got the search warrants. So the search warrant was not just for his house. They also could search his plane and his car and I think his workplace, like his bakery. So they're gonna search all the shit. Now, so what ends up happening? They start searching the house. Now they don't find anything in the plane or the bakery or anything like that. It's totally clean. So at this point, they're starting to get a little bit discouraged. So they start like searching the house, and they find like, you know, a bunch of weapons and stuff, but they're like, you know, nothing. It's none of the weapons that had anything to do with the murders or anything like that. And they're like, he's a hunter, so it's not really that big a deal that there's like all of these things in the house. So they're kind of like, well, shit, we didn't find anything. But then they found, I believe it was underneath, like tucked into, like hidden in the headboard of him and his wife's bed, they found this box, and inside it was like an aviation map, like an aerial map of the area, like the Connect River, and there's a bunch of little X's on it.
Oh shit.
And they noticed that some of those X's corresponded to some bodies that they had already found, except there was a fuck ton more on there, and they were like, oh,
there he is.
No.
Left a fucking treasure map.
Right.
Dumbass.
So then they searched even more, like, and then they went up into the attic, and they pulled up all the insulation, and they found the 223. They found that up in the attic, and they also found a whole bunch of jewelry that had belonged to the victims, just like John Douglas said they would. He said that he would be keeping jewelry or driver's licenses or something like that, and indeed they did find some very distinctive jewelry that had belonged to some of the dead and missing women. Found it in the attic, so they're like, obviously this is the guy. So yeah, who is this guy? Let's rewind and like talk about his upbringing and all that kind of stuff. So Robert Hansen, born in 1939. He was actually born in Iowa. His dad was a Danish immigrant. I think his mom was American though. Now his dad was also a baker. That's where that's where Robert got the shit from. Now Robert, I'm not saying this to excuse him, but he had like a pretty rough childhood. Like I said, he was kind of real skinny. He had a real bad stutter. He had when he got a little bit older, he had super bad acne, which obviously they were just kind of like pus and sores like all over his face. Also, him and his dad didn't really get along. Like his dad was very strict and very domineering, and made Robert work in the bakery, for real long hours, like from a pretty young age. Also, he was naturally left-handed, and this was pretty common back in those days. For whatever reason, they thought left-handed people were defective or satanic or something. There was like so they would often, if you started writing with your left hand, which was natural to you, they would whack your left hand until you made you write with your right one.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to him. And he said that he found this so stressful that it made like the stutter even worse because of the stress of having to, of getting beaten for writing with his natural hand. So there was that.
Sarah's in there calling Dadzik a pussy. Dadzik was not a fucking pussy. That dude sucker punched him. Anybody can knock out anybody if the blow is right. No, that wasn't a pussy. He was just. It's just hard being a Satanist in a world full of atheists, It just...
It is. Nobody's scared of Satan anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Dadzik could fucking deliver, man. Dude could sing.
Could write, too.
Okay, back to the show.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, as I said, because this kid, he was kind of... not really that good looking. Like I said, he was real pimply. He had a speech impediment. So obviously not super popular. Didn't really have a lot of friends. Kind of got picked on and bullied a lot and that kind of shit. So he graduates high school in 1957, and he actually went into the Army Reserves. So he did the basic training, and then, you have to go like 1 weekend a month or whatever. And then so when he wasn't doing the Army Reserves thing, he was working in his dad's bakery. And sometimes they actually, at some point, I think they moved out to California, but then they moved back to Iowa. They moved to this town called Pocahontas. And when they lived there, he actually was a drill instructor for like the junior police or whatever. I think it was like a volunteer thing. Now, in 1960, only a few years after he graduated high school, he actually got married. He met this girl. She was a few years younger than him. I've seen a couple different... I saw one documentary that said her name was Phoebe, but then I saw another one that said her name was Carolyn, so I'm not really sure like what her name was. They weren't married very long. Spoiler alert. But yeah, I think she was still like 17 or 18 years old, and he was like in his early 20s.
I always thought Phoebe was an incredibly sexy name.
It is kind of a cute
name. I just
name.
think it's just sexy as fuck. You never meet anybody named Phoebe, though.
I don't think I've ever... Yeah, no. I don't think I've ever met anybody named...
And chances are, if you
other than Phoebe Cates, and I've never actually met her.
Chances are, if you did meet a girl named Phoebe, she'd be about 250 pounds. That's probably what would happen.
You don't know.
Yeah.
Sarah said, looking like Jenny's sister in them glasses.
Who, me? Damn.
All right.
Put them on.
Yeah, there you go.
I can be confused with a female. That's what you're trying to say, right?
Well, except for the mustache and beard.
Mustache.
But,
And that fucking face, man. Getting ugly.
Why not?
Getting ugly. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Starting to look like fucking one of them Klingons. I'll fucking start.
I thought you would. I would have thought you would like that.
Here, there. Now I'm not one of them Klingons.
Yeah. Okay. So
I'm fucking Kronos for Venom.
Yeah, there you go. I kind of like that. That's kind of fun, actually. That's another Halloween costume you could do. You could be a Klingon.
Yeah.
You could just wear it like that, and then that'd be cool, actually.
Yeah.
That'd be cool, actually.
Yeah, I got fucking on. Get the fucking Klingon armor and shit.
Yeah, there you go.
It'd be like a '70s Klingon from like Star Trek, fucking the motion picture.
Yeah, that'd be badass.
Yeah.
So, all right. So the first thing that they know of, like as far as crime goes, that little Robert Hansen got up to, happened in 1960. And this is very common. I think it's one of the triad of things they always say about serial killers, like when they're younger. It's usually like cruelty to animals, bedwetting, and arson. Those are like usually the three things. Well, this is arson. What he did was I believe he was 21 or 22 years old at this point. And remember how I said this is one of those motherfuckers that, he's going to take revenge on the whole world because kids were mean to him at school and girls didn't like him and stuff. So you'd think he would have gotten over it by the time he was in his early 20s, but no, you'd be wrong about that. He's still mad about it, and he's going to get revenge. And the way that he gets revenge, it's a little indirect, let's put it that way. So there was this guy that worked at the bakery that was like a kid, like a teenager that he knew. And so he, kind of shanghais this kid into helping him go and burn down the bus garage, like where they keep all the school buses in Pocahontas, Iowa. And he goes and burns it down and presumably just destroys it. And he did that to take revenge on all the people that bullied him in school. And I was like, how do you figure that's hurting them at all? I don't really understand how that works, but okay. So he just burned down this. There was nobody in it or anything. He didn't hurt anybody, but he burned it down. What?
Just saying, it looked like Dio. Yeah, dude, it looked more like Dio. But I have to go down. I have to get down to 120 pounds to look like Dio, though. But the hair, yeah. Holy diver, in the misty morning. Okay, go ahead. I can fuck around.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I'm fucking around. I gotta do the show.
Yeah, because I'm
gonna become a Klingon again.
I can't stay up all night doing this shit. I gotta get up for work in the morning.
I know.
So quit farting around.
I know.
All right. So he burned the shit down. Unfortunately for him, the teenager that he had recruited to help him do this stuff felt bad about it and actually went to the cops and reported him. Now, at this point, like I said, he had gotten married. I think it was only 6 months prior to doing this. So his wife found out that he had burned this shit down, and she's like, what the fuck ever, and she left him, you know what I mean? She either had it annulled or, asked for a divorce or something like that, because, what the fuck? So he actually got sentenced to 3 years for the arson, but only served 20 months. Now, they gave him a psychiatric assessment before he was released on parole, in which they found that he had what they called an infantile personality. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, obviously. Because he was super, super obsessed with taking revenge and everybody's out to get me and I gotta get him back and all this other kind of stuff. And he hadn't gotten over shit that happened when he was a kid, you know what I mean?
How old was he again?
He was in his early 20s at this point.
Oh, good.
At this point he was. This was 1960. He graduated from high school in 1957, so I guess he was 21 or 22. So he gets out, and he meets another woman. Thank you, Hayden. Oh my God.
Damn.
Tom gonna make 13 o'clock Brazzers. Is Brazzers still around?
Yeah, Brazzers is around. Sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard
me
that
and
name
Jenny. Hey, when I put the word out that me and Jenny were gonna do this, fucking Quinn Studios said, man, you come with us to fucking Exoticon in fucking Miami. Fucking, he says I got a booth and everything, and in a hotel room, and I was like, well, no, we're not gonna. Nah, but his wife is Amy Quinn. You can look her up on Twitter. That's his wife.
But thank you very much, Hayden. That's
thank you very much.
That's very, very
generous.
generous. Very generous.
Yeah, matter of fact, I've never seen
that color before.
Seen that color. 50, damn.
Maybe once, but it was.
So I need to start fucking up more, start making some money, putting on wigs and shit.
Well, yeah,
that was a good idea though. I need to make a Klingon outfit.
Yeah,
well, I'll use my leathercraft shit.
Yeah, there you go.
To make the Klingon armor.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, we'll do that on the cam show.
There you go.
We have a Star Trek version.
Yeah, we could do like different. We could do different themes. If we feel like it. And it's sometimes I'm not gonna feel like doing all costumes and stuff, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Have you dressed up like a fucking Vulcan?
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah, Vulcan Federation officer. And a Klingon. From Star Trek the Motion Picture.
We're gonna have all kinds of fun on this show.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be
Bad
fun.
dragon strap on and shit. Didn't know the Klingons were built like this, did you? Spotlight coming down. Okay.
But this is gonna be some high production values right here.
Yeah.
We'll
put out a video of that. We won't do that on the show. We'll put out a video.
All right. So he gets out from the arson. And he meets a young woman who, I think her name was Darla. Now, like I said, as much as he's pissing and moaning about girls not liking him, he doesn't really seem to have too much trouble finding women that will marry him. So, I don't know what he's complaining about. But anyway. So he married her in autumn of 1963. And eventually they had a couple of kids together. Now, during this time, too, he was also arrested several more times. Usually for stealing shit. He was a little bit of a klepto, it seems. So after that, like in 1967, that was when he decided, we're going to move out to Alaska and like start over, I guess, because I guess there were like too many bad memories where he was, and he kept getting arrested. So he's like, I'm going to go and make a fresh start, like in Alaska or whatever. So they moved out to Anchorage. Now, I think his wife had, I think she had a master's degree in education. So I think she was like a tutor or something like that. And he ended up opening, like I said, a bakery that was actually really, really successful. So he's not one of those serial killers that, what they would call like a disorganized serial killer. Like, he kept his shit together. He ran a business that was very successful. Yeah, he had a family that apparently didn't suspect much of anything. I have heard that he was at least verbally abusive toward them, which would not be surprising. But I don't know if he physically abused them, though.
If you guys have if you're long followers of the show, I've said it many times over. I've read a lot of books on the profiling and stuff that come out of the FBI, and even real high functioning serial killers like Ted Bundy, they're mostly faking their competency. He wasn't that competent. They're competent enough, but they're never as competent as they want you to think that they are. They're more intelligent on average, especially more intelligent than the average person. All right, and they're way more intelligent than the average criminal, but they're not as intelligent as a really intelligent person. If they weren't that intelligent, they get caught early. They never become a serial killer.
Right.
But if they can get past 3 or 4 without getting caught, they got enough intelligence to be a serial killer.
But the thing about him, though, is that sometimes if they don't get caught, and I think this happened in Robert Hansen's case as well, because he kept getting caught for shit, and even like sexual assaults and stuff like that, and he kept kind of getting away with it because he'd only get like these little slap on the wrist type sentences. And so I think that after a while, he started to think, oh, well, I can't get caught, like I can just do what I want, because obviously they're not going to do anything to me. So I think he kind of got into that, which he was right about that, because he didn't get caught for like a really long time. He did shit from like 1971, I think, was maybe his first murder, and then they didn't catch him until 1983. So he was pretty much operating with impunity all that time, even though he was, like I said, he was caught for shit. He had a long criminal record, and not just for stealing shit and arson either. Like later on, he did shit like in the early 1970s. He actually followed a woman home. I think what had happened was that he was in a car and she was in a car, and like he pulled up next to her, and she kind of like turned and was like, hey, or whatever, and he was like, ooh, she digs me. And so he followed her back to her apartment and like tried to drag her out like he grabbed her and like tried to drag her out of her fucking apartment.
Weird.
And yeah, so he tried to do like attempt, and I think he did a couple of rapes as well, and he got caught for them, but he never got like much of a sentence. And like when all these bodies started turning up in Anchorage, like they never even thought to like look up any of this shit, even though he's done like the exact same things before.
It's the weirdest thing, man. Back in the day, rape didn't carry much of a sentence. Now a rape carries a lot.
Well, it should.
Carries a lot. And if you grab somebody and take them to a place where they don't want to be, that's kidnapping.
Yeah.
In half the states, that's a life sentence right there.
And he kidnapped people, like I said.
Right, yeah.
And then he'd get like, he'd get like fucking 3 months or some bullshit like that.
Yeah.
For literally like grabbing a woman that was just like walking down the street or something.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
That would be kidnapping.
Yeah. Well, it is kidnapping.
Yeah.
You can't play with that shit, man.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, the motherfuckers would turn out like this.
Most southern states, that's life. Or something close to life, like 50. You know. They're not playing. All right? They don't play.
Yeah, and like I said, you shouldn't play because because dudes that'll do that shit, it's this type of dude.
Yeah.
It's this type of dude.
Yeah.
And they're not going to
taking you somewhere
they're not
against
gonna
your will.
Stop doing it.
Taking someone to a place against their will, that's a huge red flag.
Yeah.
Huge. It's something worse than death. They're going to take you somewhere and do something slow to you.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's something that they really should punish.
Yeah.
Accordingly.
Kidnapping should be a life sentence.
Not this bullshit like from back then where it's like he literally like, abducts a woman and like either rapes her or attempts to rape her and they're just like, oh, it's fine. He can go back on the street after 3-6 months. He's not hurting anybody.
Most of the kidnappings involve like parents fighting over children. They take the children. I think a lot of times that's an exemption. Second behind that is a dude gets dumped by his girlfriend. He grabs his girlfriend, throws her in a car. He tries to take her somewhere, to get back with her. That's also kidnapping. All right. But no, those dudes do a lot of time for that. But grabbing a stranger and abducting them, trying to take them, that's life.
Yeah. Well, like I said, and it ought to be because that's not gonna lead anywhere good. People doing shit like that.
Yeah.
That's this type of motherfucker.
You're right.
So yeah. So he moves to Anchorage with his family, and for a while, it seems like maybe, this whole starting a new life thing is gonna work out. He opens the bakery, and he starts hunting like in the wilderness, and he's actually really good at it. He's like a really good crossbow hunter and stuff like that. And he like has all these records. I think they had that record book with like the person that shot the biggest whatever like with the crossbow or whatever. And he had like a bunch of records in there. So he was kind of like known around town as being like a really good crossbow hunter and shit like that. So, and like I said, he had like all those trophies in his house also. However, he just couldn't keep it together. He couldn't keep it together. In 1977, he was arrested again, this time for stealing a chainsaw from a department store. Now, he actually got 5 years for that, which is crazy because, like I said, some other like rapes and shit like that, he'd get like 3 months, 6 months, but you steal a chainsaw from a department store and they put you in the slammer for 5 years. So they did I don't think he did all 5 years though. But, so they do like the psychiatric evaluation on him or whatever. And they determined that he, had bipolar disorder. And, actually the prison psychiatrist said that they should make him take lithium. But that, obviously they can't really enforce that, like once he was let out. So as far as I know, he never did take it. So as I mentioned earlier, in the early 1980s, Hansen did some insurance fraud by reporting to the police that all of this stuff had been stolen from his house, but really he had just hidden it. And he got $13,000 from the insurance company. And so that with that he bought, like I said, he either bought the bakery and the plane, or he just bought the plane and had the bakery before. I'm not real clear on that. So yeah. Now, so they had so back to the kind of present day where we were. So they bring Hansen back to the police headquarters and they're asking him about the murders and stuff like that. Now, because they had they did charge him. They didn't charge him with any murders at first, but they did have some other stuff they could, because he, the guns they found in his house, it was like weapons violations. They had him on the insurance fraud and theft and things like that. So it's like, well, we have things to hold him on until we can get enough evidence, like for the murder shit. So in late 1983, they actually had 4 indictments against him. Some first-degree assault and kidnapping. That was for the Cindy Paulson case. 5 counts of misconduct, possession of a handgun, theft in second degree, theft by deception, and insurance fraud. So they were still waiting for the ballistics test to come back from that rifle that they found to tie him in with the murders. That was like some of the physical evidence.
Possession of a handgun.
Well, it was a handgun that he wasn't supposed to have. Like, there was that one that they found, like, up in the thing.
Why wasn't he supposed to have that?
I don't know.
This is Alaska.
I know, but I don't know. I'm just telling you what it says.
Because
I don't know why
he should have been able to
at me.
have that in Alaska. It's not Canada, and this time, that's odd.
Well, misconduct in possession of a handgun.
Oh, okay.
So that might have had to do with the fact that he was, like...
doing something wrong and had a gun on him.
Right. That's what I mean. So,
Okay,
because
yeah,
he had the handgun
while
he was abducting
right, that's what
Cindy
it was.
Paulson,
Yeah, okay.
is what it was.
That's
Not so
what it
much
is.
the possession.
Right.
Not so much the possession.
With firearm, in other words, he was in the commission of a violent crime with a firearm, is what so it's an enhancement, is what they're talking about.
Right.
Okay.
Like I said, they were just trying to get some major indictments against him until like more evidence came in for the murder charges, because they really wanted to charge him with that.
Right.
But they had all this other stuff to like hold him on. So finally they get the ballistics tests back.
Another drink.
And it will surprise no one to know that the rifle that they found under his insulation in the attic was indeed the same rifle that had killed the women that they found, the shell casings and everything like that. So at this point, basically they were like, they wanted him to confess is what they wanted. What they ended up doing was that because he wouldn't confess at first, like he basically just was like, he wouldn't really tell them much of anything that they didn't already know. So they actually went back to another woman that he had raped back in the early 70s and asked her if she would like come testify, and they wanted to get Cindy Paulson to testify as well, against him. So he did have, like I said, because he had some sexual assaults on his record prior to all of this happening, like from the 70s, but he hadn't killed anybody. They think that his first murder was in 71, but they're not entirely sure. Like I said, they're not entirely sure how many people he's killed, but it's at least 17 and probably more. So basically what they did was they offered him, they said, look, we'll tell you what, if you give us a full confession, tell us everything that happened, we'll only charge you with the 4 murders that we know about. They're like, because look, we know that you've killed like a lot more people than just those 4, but those are the ones that they had evidence in, like the ones that they had found the bodies. And, they said, so if you confess to that, then, you'll be able to, they actually offered him, they said you'd be able to serve time at a federal prison, instead of, like a supermax or maximum security or whatever. So, he said, okay. So after that, they got the full confession out of Robert Hansen. I don't know if his entire confession is, because I know it was recorded. I've heard significant clips of it, but I don't know if the whole thing is somewhere. And I've read bits of the transcript or whatever. But basically what he said he would do was he would just kind of drive up and down, because, he worked at a bakery, so that's kind of weird hours, because they have to be there in the middle of the night to kind of get all the stuff ready for the morning and everything. So when he got off work, he would drive, up and down the red light district and just see, women walking around, prostitutes, sex workers, whatever. And then he would say something and this is actually a quote from his confession. He says, I pull out the gun, and he says to them, look, you're a professional. You don't get excited. You know there's some risk to what you've been doing. If you do exactly what I tell you, you're not going to get hurt. You're just going to count this off as a bad experience and be a little more careful next time who you're going to proposition or go out with. And then he said that he tried to act as tough as he could to get them as scared as possible. He said he would hold their head back, put a gun in their face, get them to feel helpless, scared. And, so he said he was just trying to get control of the situation, just like a cop would. That's basically what he was saying. So he said, so after that, what he would do, he would handcuff them, and then he said, well, for a while, he couldn't take them to the house because obviously his wife and kids were there. But when he actually sent his wife and kids away to Europe that summer, specifically so he could bring victims back there because he wanted to do that. He called it his summer project. Ugh. These fucking motherfuckers, I swear to God. So, yeah. But what he would do, he would take them, he'd put them in the plane and then fly them out to his cabin. He'd have, like, this kind of shack out there. And so he was doing it out at the cabin at first. And he would take them out there. He would tie them up. He would, like, rape and torture them. And then he would take all their clothes off, blindfold them, and set them free out in the woods. Give them a little bit of a head start, and then hunt them down like an animal is what he would do. Sometimes he would like toy with them for a really long time. I've heard that he would even sometimes like kind of sneak around behind them like with a hunting knife and like kind of cut at their legs and shit like that. So he would wound them and then like follow the blood trail and crap like that. Or like sometimes
where'd you get that from?
I just like on one other documentary that I was watching, because I watched like a whole bunch of different documentaries about this.
This is his story or a story from a survivor?
No, as far as I know, I don't think anybody survived that he took out in the woods. And actually, one of the women, I think like did get it, but then she died of exposure later on. But most of them, they found them later that were like shot.
No, she got away from him, and then she died from the cold.
Right. Well, yeah, because she didn't have any clothes or shoes on.
Yeah.
Because he was, So he was out there, like I said, he was out there doing some most dangerous game shit.
Yeah. See, because the reason why I'm calling bullshit on that is because it's hard to sneak up on somebody. Real
well,
hard.
Yeah, I know that, but like I said, they're out there naked and terrified with a blindfold on.
Oh, the blindfold's on them when they're running?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, he put like an ace bandage over their eyes.
Oh, damn. So where's the sport in that? And they're handcuffed?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he handcuffed all of them.
Why did they take the blindfold off?
They didn't say anything about finding handcuffs on some of the bodies. They did find the ace bandages though, like on some of the around the eyes.
Well, they must have been there. Maybe they could. There had to have been a way. They must have been handcuffed behind the back. That way they couldn't take the blindfold off.
Yeah. Ben said sometimes he would fly his plane and shoot them from the air. I don't know if he did that though. Like I didn't read that anywhere, but maybe he did.
That'd be hard to do. It's hard to take a shot from an air.
I think he would normally just like take them to the cabin and then like let them free and like run around. And he got his jollies like that, like letting him run around and he would shoot them. And a lot of them, like the ones they found, the bodies they found, like they were shot in the back. So like I said, how fucking sporting is that? Not very. So yeah, as you might note, this is very much like the story The Most Dangerous Game, which came out that story came out in the 1920s, and they've made it into a movie like 40 bajillion times. If you've ever seen like I read it in school. Did you read it in school?
Yeah.
I was watching because Simon Whistler.
Lit, wasn't it?
Yeah. Because Simon Whistler, the casual criminalist show that he does, he did a show about Robert Hansen, and he had never read Most Dangerous Game, and I said, well, I thought everybody read it in school. Maybe they don't read it in school anymore.
No, they changed education, man. They don't educate people anymore. They used to fucking give you there was all kinds of classic literature you had to read. You had to read Charles Dickens.
Well, I think they still do that. I'm just saying that sometimes the what they read like changes, and maybe that just fell off the curriculum. I don't know. Yeah. But I remember reading it in school.
Yeah. I read Beowulf.
Yeah, I did too.
Because it was part of English lit. Beowulf, Most Dangerous Game.
I mean, that's a short story. So.
Great Temptations. What's a great?
Great Expectations.
Great Expectations.
Yeah, we read that too.
There's a bunch of them that had to read.
Mayor of Casterbridge.
Yeah, I don't think I read that one.
I remember reading that one in 10th grade.
And then there was a bunch of poetry you had to read. You had to read a bunch of Emily Dickinson and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robert Herrick.
Yeah. Read about Jabberwockies and shit.
That's Lewis Carroll.
Yeah.
I like that poem, though.
Yeah.
I liked that. I liked English lit.
Yeah.
Scarlet Letter. We read the Scarlet Letter.
Yeah, I remember that one.
I actually really like that book. I don't know.
What was the other one? Crucible? No.
Yeah, that's Arthur Miller. That's
Yeah.
the play about the
Yeah.
We read that I read that in 10th or 11th grade. Our Town. I remember reading that. Thornton Wilder. I'm trying to remember all the shit we had to read. Did a lot of Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, Midsummer Night's Dream, Macbeth.
Midsummer's Night Dream, remember that one, yeah.
Tale of Two Cities.
I read that one on my own.
We read that in school.
That was Alexander Dumas, wasn't it? No,
that's Charles Dickens.
Yeah, that's right. Charles Alexander Dumas, where he wrote Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah.
It was that fucking original gangster story about getting out of prison and fucking becoming a player, and getting revenge on the people that locked you up and who stole your wife from you. That was a good one.
Ben said, they made you read that at school. What? They made us read what at school? Or Mayor of Casterbridge is my favorite classic novel. I didn't really... You know what? It's Thomas Hardy, right? And it's like, I didn't really like The Mayor of Casterbridge. I should probably, reread it. However, one of Thomas Hardy's other books, Jude the Obscure, is probably one of my favorite... classic novels, even though it's the most depressing shit ever. But that's probably why I like it. Yeah, Jane Eyre. Yeah, I think we read that too. Did we read Jane Eyre? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Frankenstein. We read Frankenstein. I'm trying to remember. We read a bunch of stuff. Okay. So yeah, we got distracted because of Most Dangerous Game. I'm just saying, I remember reading that short story. It was in a compilation of short stories that we read in school, because it was that one and The Lottery by Shirley Jackson and Rose for Emily. That was another one we read. So yeah, it was just short stories. So basically, Robert Hansen confesses to all this shit. And then they give him a big map, because they're like, look, we know that you killed a lot of people and you buried them out here. So he pointed out 15 sites that he remembered burying bodies. 12 of these were previously unknown to investigators. Now, they decided they were going to put him in a plane and fly him out to each thing so he could point the bodies out to them. The fucked up thing about this is that when they took him out there, it's Alaska, it's all covered with snow and it's out in the wilderness and stuff. And they said the fucked up thing was that they would take him to some of the sites and they were he got visibly really jazzed and really excited, oh well, and he's digging in the snow, she's around here somewhere, you know what I mean? He was super happy about it, and it's that's fucked up. But he was very, very excited to show them where the fucking bodies were, or to revisit the shit. I don't really know. I don't know. So yeah, so they fly him out to each location, and they, found a bunch more bodies. So they ended up, I believe that they found, even though he actually confessed, as far as I know, to killing 17, I think they found... Okay, they found the bodies they found at the beginning, but then they found 12 more bodies, okay? But some of the other ones that he confessed to killing, they have not found their bodies. And like I said, the first one they found, which was the unidentified woman, she's still not identified. What was it? Ecluta Annie or whatever.
He probably didn't know who she was either, did he?
Well, nobody knew. Yeah. Nobody knew. So yeah. Basically, what they did, so even though he showed them where all these other bodies were, and he confessed to 17 murders, and 30 rapes on top of that, the women that lived, they, because of the deal, they were only going to charge him with the 4 murders, that they knew about, which were Sherry Morrow, Joanna Messina, Paula Golding, and Ecluta Annie. So those were the ones they had the most evidence for. So they just charged him with 4. But the judge was like, well, even if it's just 4 murders, we're not letting this motherfucker back out on the street. So they basically sentenced him to 461 years plus life on top of that. and was like, this motherfucker is never getting out.
Yeah.
Which finally, I mean, it took him long enough to do that. But yeah, so they did end up finding 7 bodies where he pointed out the grave sites, but they haven't recovered any of the other bodies. Some of them it was just too far out in the wilderness, or there's animals and stuff like that. So some of the bodies were perhaps eaten. Or
did he give many details about what happened during these hunts?
Not so. I don't think so. Not so much. Like he just kind of got off on watching the naked girls just like running around and just shooting at them.
Yeah. All right.
Like, you know what I mean? He said he would sometimes like wait. Like I said, he'd give him a head start and.
Nothing about what they said or anything. Maybe they didn't say anything.
I don't think so. I mean, what could you possibly say? I'm sure
some of them might try to talk the way out of it.
Well, I'm sure most of them did.
Right.
I was kind of I was just, like I said, I was just watching The Frozen Ground, which is the 2013 movie that they made about this guy. And they kind of showed one situation where, the girl was out there and, and he was chasing her and she was doing that. She was just basically like, why don't you just let me go? And all of a sudden I'm like, I'm sure they probably all said that.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking to myself, it's like, I don't even know if I was in that situation. I don't, thankfully I've never been in that situation, but, would I even bother?
No, that dude's fucking. He's too far gone to be reasoned with. You just run.
But I mean, that's really like the only thing you can think to do, I guess. But it's like I don't really.
What's a shame is that one of them got away and then she froze to death.
As far as I remember, yeah, I think one of them did get away, and then she died of exposure because it's the wilderness. She probably got lost and she didn't have any clothes or shoes or.
And she may have been handcuffed too.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, you said they're wearing a blindfold, so there's got to be a reason why they can't take the blindfold.
I mean, I don't know if they all were, but that was one thing that they did find.
Or maybe he pulls the gun on him, tells him to freeze, and goes up and blindfolds him and shoots him.
Yeah.
Like an execution.
Yeah, he would shoot him in the back, but he let him run away though, and let him run around for a little while.
Weird.
Because I guess he liked them to be scared.
Yeah.
But so the other bodies.
They probably weren't scared. They're probably pissed off.
Huh?
They probably weren't even scared. They're probably just pissed off. Think about it. Because they're not in captivity. They're just running. They're probably, this motherfucker, you know what I mean? Yeah, they're just running, probably. How much you bet? It never goes down the way they imagine it. They're probably calling him all kinds of motherfuckers. I'd be cussing at him.
Well, yeah, I probably would too.
Yeah, so I'm thinking those girls were probably like that too. Probably calling him a bitch-ass coward and everything.
Ben said, oh, the most dangerous game seems odd for required reading in the 80s. Yeah, I mean, I guess so. But like I said, it wasn't so much. It was just kind of like I said, we had this big, huge English book that had a bunch of short stories in it. And that was just one of the short stories that we read.
In the textbook, yeah.
And like I said, it's now that I think about it, maybe it's just the ones that I remembered were the gruesome ones.
Yeah.
But most dangerous game.
They had Telltale Heart and they had Hitting a Pendulum in there too.
Yeah. Poe. That's right. Yeah, a lot of Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
And yeah, so but like I said, I remember all the gruesome ones. Like A Rose for Emily, that's a pretty gruesome story, and The Lottery, which is a really fucked up story. You know what I mean? So we read a lot of fucked up stuff in the 80s.
Yeah. Oh, Cask of Amontillado was in there.
Amontillado, yeah.
Amontillado, yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of Poe in there. Now
Poe,
that I'm thinking about it, Mask of the Red Death.
Yeah, that was in there too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if that was one book. I think that might have been 2 books. I think we're combining 2 years together.
Well, I'm just
junior and senior year.
I'm just talking about everything that I can remember from junior high and high school that we had to read. I don't remember that much from junior high, but I remember high school. Most of the stuff that we had to read for high school.
That was one of my favorite classes.
What, English
Lit? Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite classes too. Not so much in 10th grade because I didn't like the teacher, but 11th grade our teacher was awesome.
I liked all my classes except anything mathematics and algebra. Fucking that shit was hard. I hated it. And fucking this is known science, but they don't give a shit. The frontal lobes of fucking men really don't develop until early 20s. You're really not intelligent enough to fucking absorb a lot of the mathematics and a lot of shit that they're teaching you. And if you can absorb it, then there's something wrong with you if you're a man, if you're a guy. They've looked at it and they've said they fucking I saw a fucking program on it. They said the lower the testosterone levels in those boys, the better they do. The higher the testosterone, the worse that they do. and that's beyond. That's across all males of all different ethnic groups. Boys should go to middle school, and then they should be out of school at middle school. They should go back to high school around 20. That's when you can educate them, and that's how you finish them up. During those teenage years, they need to be in some kind of a fucking activity, something kind of like the military is where they need to be. Doing construction, playing sports, shit like that. Having sex, that's what they should be doing.
So, okay, so I was trying to say who the other victims were. The other 7 bodies that they found. So, these were the other 7 bodies that they found that they have identified. Their names were Sue Luna, Malai Larson, Delynn Fry, Teresa Watson, Angela Fettern, Tamara Peterson, and Lisa Futrell. Those were the other ones that they found, all women that around the same age that had been missing for some time. So yeah. As I said, they have not identified, or they haven't found, like, the other ones that he confessed to killing, and they still have not identified Annie, like, the first one that they found. They said that when they found her, the only description they have, she was a white woman, brunette in her 20s, wearing knee-high, reddish-brown, high-heeled boots, jeans, a sleeveless knit top, and a brown leather jacket. She also had a silver cuff bracelet with polished stones in it that was possibly handmade. So they're hoping still that someone will be able to identify her. But so Hansen, like I said, 461 years he got, plus life. And so they actually put him in prison in Pennsylvania for a little while because I guess he didn't want to be in prison in Alaska. But then they moved him back to Alaska afterward in Seward. And then he was there until his death in 2014. He died of some unspecified natural causes at the age of 75. Remember how I said earlier that he'd kind of been known as like a big game hunter, and he had like a bunch of records in that Pope and Young's is what they call it, which is like the kind of like, I guess it's like the Guinness Book of World Records for hunters or whatever. And they actually scrubbed his name out after all of this shit came out, which, you can't really fucking blame him, can you?
You gonna drink any of this?
Well, yeah. Well, I'm trying to talk. I'm trying to finish the show, so it's kind of hard to drink.
I made that drink a long time ago.
I know, but it's hard to drink and talk at the same time.
You want me to drink some of it for you?
No.
Okay.
I'm just saying that I'm trying to finish the show. It's kind of hard to. It's kind of hard to like do 2 things at once. You know what I mean? I can't. You know what I mean? I can't do like 40 things at once.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And then I drink and you don't talk. You
I'm gonna
just
put
sit there.
I'm gonna drink some.
And then you just kind of sit there.
I'm gonna drink some. There you go.
Ben said he lost his records for hunting because his witness to the kills was the same guy who gave him a false alibi for his crime. Oh, I didn't know that. I never heard that anywhere. What was that guy's name? Henning? That guy didn't know what he was up to, right? Did he? Because I kind of feel like he felt really bad because he went to the cops later, because I think it was his wife that came out like when the cops were searching the house and said, hey, what's going on? And like the cops said, oh, we think that, I don't think they said, hey, we think he's a serial killer, because they wouldn't say that, but to your neighbor. But they might have said, oh, we want him like with this murder investigation. And she's like, oh, my husband said that he was with him on that particular day, and that was bullshit. He wasn't. And then I think the husband actually did go to the cops later and retracted his confession. So I think that, his alibi. So I think that he did feel bad about it, but I don't know. It seemed like he was one of those motherfuckers like BTK that like was just, everyone just thought, oh, he's the guy that owns the bakery. He's Baker Bob. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like nobody, and he made like really good cookies and shit like that apparently, and like all the cops went there and had donuts and whatnot. And so I don't think anybody suspected him really, even though he had like a really long criminal record. And even he had a criminal record of like doing similar shit, like I said, like abducting and raping women. It's just that he kind of like got away with it, and it seemed like no one really checked. Which, like I said, I kind of feel like nowadays they would do that. But I know it was harder back then because, they didn't have a national database and all that. But still, I mean, you'd think, I don't know.
Who knows how accurate that national database actually is even today.
Well, I'm sure it was better than back then, though. It's like back then they didn't like fucking know shit. Why do you think it took so long to catch motherfuckers back then? You moved to another state And like most of the time, unless you did something really egregious, I don't think they would even like think to check like other states' records, like where you came from or nothing.
Yeah, you had to hit the news.
Right.
For something bad.
And then like somebody in the other, like the national news.
That guy,
oh shit! Like I'm gonna call the cops in that state. And so that's like that's what I mean. You had to do something really really bad that like it got on the national news, so somebody else would hear about it and like and get you to like look into it.
Yeah.
Right. So. Up until fairly recently, I think that was the case. And honestly, I don't think we've brought this up before, but maybe that was another reason why serial killers seem to get away with, like, they had, like, much longer careers, if you want to call it that, back in the 60s and 70s, maybe for that reason, too, because you could just kind of go to another state and...
Yeah, no computers.
Yeah, no computers. So it's like, unless somebody... if somebody had the wherewithal to, like, check... they'd find out your shit. But, a lot of times they wouldn't have a reason to. If nobody suspected you of anything. Like, why would you... Oh, where is this motherfucker from? Oh, Iowa? Let's go check the records in Iowa and see if he did some shit there. You know what I mean? You wouldn't check. You wouldn't have a reason.
Even today, it'd be hard to catch a serial killer that is moving a lot. And a lot of them are constantly moving. They're on the road. They're truckers and shit like that. That's the most common one. Because you're killing people in one fucking jurisdiction and dropping them off, the body off in another. Those are the ones that get away with it the longest.
Ben said, wasn't he on parole for raping a boy when he started the bakery? I'm not really sure about that. I hadn't, seen that on anything, but it's possible. He was, he had done some rapes before, but as far as I know, they were women. Like, he either raped or attempted to rape, like, a housewife. Like, that was one case. And I don't think she's ever been named. And there was, like, an attempted rape kidnapping, like, on a girl, like I said, that he had followed home. Because he just saw her in a car or something. And followed her to her apartment and tried to abduct her. So I know there was that. And there, like I said, that kind of thing is never, like, an isolated incident. Dudes that do that, they probably do that kind of shit all the time. So I would imagine... that he has probably raped and killed substantially more people than they think. Like I said, they're pretty sure... They know he killed 17 people. But they said that they're on the map, the map that they found in his house. I think there were 21 X's, which would denote grave sites, because almost all of the X's were grave sites. I think they checked some of them and there was nothing there, but like I said, it was maybe because, animals had gotten to them.
But he didn't confess?
Well, he confessed to 17.
All right.
But then they pointed out, too, that map might only be part of, like, another... Maybe, he has a map of another area where he's, hiding. But he particularly liked that area around the Kinnick River, I guess, because he was familiar with it.
You'd think that he would want credit for all of them.
Yeah, you'd think that, too. But like I said, I'm not really sure. There were 21 X's on the map, as far as I'm aware. And he...
1721, that's not a big leap, so there must be 21.
Right. But then, like, I saw another thing that said maybe as many as 37, and I'm not really sure where they're getting that total from, but I mean, there must be some reason why they came up with that. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ben said his first crime that got him locked up was burning down a school bus shed. Yeah, that was, and like I said, that's pretty common with some serial killers, like doing, it's like I said, it's usually cruelty to animals or arson or something like that. And it was done as revenge against, like, bullies at school for some reason. I don't know why the bullies at school would care that he burned down the school bus thing, but whatever.
Symbolic.
I suppose. Ben also said Alaska was a bit of a Wild West state where people hiding out tended to move to, apparently. Yeah, I think there was, and Mr. 88 said that's still the case. Yeah, I kind of feel like it still is. I mean, I think, like, the population's probably much higher now than it was back then, but it did have a reputation back then for being very Wild West. That's kind of where you went if you wanted to kind of lose yourself or start over anew, like if you were in trouble someplace else or something like that. So there was, like, a lot of transient elements, a lot of criminal elements, a lot of that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So, Camp Guy said David Berkowitz started over 1,000 fires. He wrote them down in a journal.
Berkowitz did 1,000 fires? I didn't know about that.
I didn't either. He said,
heard of that.
I'm too lazy to keep a journal, he says. Right? It's like, you've got to be some kind of, like, weirdo obsessive to, I mean, I enjoy writing things down too, like so I can remember it later, but I can't imagine why. Well, I mean, why would you write down what's exciting about that? Like one fire is pretty much like another fire, right?
No, they've sexualized that shit. I've seen fucking programs on master arsonists that are just can do amazing things just with a cigarette lighter. I mean,
Amazing
me and
things.
you walk around and don't see anything, but he sees it and goes, "Man, if I put a cigarette lighter right there, that whole fucking fence will burn, that tree will get caught, and then it will go and it'll climb and it'll get into that apartment complex. And once that goes up, they could, and then they'll do it." Yeah. And fucking, just with it. But only a pyro thinks like that.
Isn't it sad that, like,
Yeah.
people have quote-unquote talents like that?
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, if they use that for something productive, like, they could probably, like,
Yeah.
do some really cool shit, but no.
It's well, for them, it's sexual.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, when the firemen show up, if they think they have a suspected arsonist in the area, they'll have guys looking at the witnesses, and they're like surreptitiously taking pictures of the witnesses to see if witnesses repeat. And they'll grab a guy if he's the suspect and reach into his pockets and see if his pants got pockets in them or if there's a hole in the pocket. You know,
Yeah.
because they're reaching through the fucking pocket and jerking it
Yeah.
while
Watching
the
the
fire's
fire.
happening. Yeah. So they know what to look for. They got arson investigators that know all about that kind of shit.
It's
You really need to fucking get a shit ton of training and figure out how to get into the mindset of a dude that's like jerks off to fire. I mean, that's an alien concept to me.
like,
You know?
like, intellectually I understand it, but,
Yeah.
like, I don't, you know. Like, I can see how you get from one thing to the other, but it's just, like, I can't relate to it, though.
No. That's some weird shit.
It is pretty weird. I get it because...
And evidently they start jerking off to things that will burn.
Yeah.
It's not even it's not even on fire, but they just go, "Oh, there it is." If
Flash
I can set
paper.
that shit, yeah, oh, there it is. If I put that on fire, it'll spread and it'll go up here and it'll be the biggest thing ever. And evidently they just can't take it. It's some weird shit, man.
It is weird. People have
It'd be like seeing a pile of fucking nude bodies and going, "Oh," you know what I mean? Like, "Oh, I gotta get that." You know what I mean? It's like that's what they're.
they all
seeing.
look so good.
They all look so good. I'm gonna jump in that shit. Oh. Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I'm gonna touch fire to it. I'm gonna touch fire to it. Yeah, and then they can't control it.
I don't know. You look like you're doing a pretty good job, like faking it right there.
Yeah, yeah. I could fucking star in a movie of pyro.
With that wig on.
This wig and everything, man.
You gonna set that wig on fire?
No.
That'll be the end. That'll
Of
be the
course
big
not.
climax.
The beautiful hair has to be part of the pyro image.
The beautiful hair. Oh my god. All right, so it's getting kind of late. Maybe we should like wrap it up.
Time's it?
It's 9:45.
Okay. Oh shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta go to bed soon because I
Yep.
gotta get up really early.
Yep.
But
Shut it down. And thank you. We had a big spender today.
we did, yeah.
Yep.
Hayden Santos.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Actually, thank you very much, everybody.
Everybody who fucking gave it.
who contributed this evening. Yeah, this was actually, like I said, this is a fucked up topic, but you guys know I like the true crime ones because, I don't know, I just find them a lot it's really compelling, so
Yeah.
even though they're fucked up.
They're good, yeah, and they're
So-
they're popular with the audience. The audience likes.
Yeah, so, I mean, who doesn't like true crime? It's
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? I know we're like sick and twisted, but, you know, it is like really interesting. And this guy, I feel like I've been wanting to do a show about him for a while because he's such a fucking monster, but you know what I mean. All right, so I guess that will do it for the show this evening. We'll be back on Friday night for the sidetrack show. Might get a little bit more into into our upcoming project because I didn't really want to talk about it on this show because you know what I mean. So I wanted to like keep shit like kind of serious because we're talking about like serious topics. You know what I mean. But Friday we can just drink and fuck around like we usually do.
Might
you
get
know.
paid Friday. I don't know. Let's see.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's almost the end
Might
of the
be
month,
paid.
isn't it?
Might be payday.
Well, I get paid Friday.
Okay.
So that'll be something.
We might go out. We'll see.
I mean, yeah, we'll see what's going on. I'm not really sure. But yeah, we didn't go out this past weekend. It was nice to kind of save some money. But all right. So we will see you guys again on Friday night. Thank you very much for dropping by. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. And we will see you guys again on Friday. Bye.